beginning of any meeting of a board, the chair shall remind all members of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest. Under this subchapter, the chair shall also inquire as to whether there are any known conflicts of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board at this time. Looking around, I see no conflict of interest, so we'll move on. In the call to order today, we have a distinguished guest, DEQ Secretary Reed Wilson. So he's been in Wilmington yesterday, and I think he's going to the mountains today, so I'm gonna let him speak before we do the minutes. And he visited us this past year in maybe March or May when you were just being nominated.
January.
January.
On the job.
Fourth day on the job, so priority. I'm gonna give it to him, but we were always grateful to have the secretary come in, and as many times, Mr. Secretary, that you want to come before us, you come and sit with us and have discussion with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, fourth day on the job last time I was here, and I had really nothing to say other than look forward to working with everyone because I didn't know anything that was going on. It's a little different now after 10 months. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see all of you, and to those of you for whom this is your second meeting, welcome to the EMC. I just want to thank you all for your public service on this commission. It's a really important commission. The work you do matters to folks in all 100 counties, so thank you for the work you do. I just want to sort of give you a bit of a DEQ update, and I'm doing the same thing next week at the Marine Fisheries Commission and the Coastal Resources Commission, so I'll be back at the coast again next week. And the first thing I want to mention is that we have a new Director of Public Affairs at our department. He is Alan Holmes. Wave. This is your sixth day? Fifth?
Yeah, but if you don't count Veterans Day.
Yeah, we don't count Veterans Day. Experienced reporter, editor, he will ensure that we deliver sharp, compelling messages about what we do at DEQ. He joins a great team. We have a wonderful senior management team, incredible division directors, some of them who are here behind me, and all the way down to our frontline workers. We have an incredible staff at DEQ. It's 1,700 people who are talented, committed professionals who care about what they do, because their job is to safeguard our air, our water, and our land so that people are healthy, communities are healthy, and we have a strong economy. So to all you DEQ staff who are here, can you raise your hands? Awesome. Thank you for what you do every day. I appreciate it. So do the people. And you know, any given day, there may be dozens of DEQ employees who are doing work that supports the work of this commission. Some days it's probably scores of DEQ employees doing that. And on some of the issues that come before you, I get briefings, and I'm always impressed because these people know these issues so well. They can answer every question I have. And so I know you all rely on their expertise, and I trust that you will continue to do that. You know, our mission is to provide science-based environmental stewardship for the health and prosperity of all North Carolinians, and there are a lot of issues wrapped up in that, lots of them, and you all deal with a good number of them. But I want to talk about and just share my 3 top priorities at the department. I'll try and do them quickly. The first is Helene recovery. Since day one, almost every division in our department has been involved. And it's not just helping them recover, it's helping them rebuild more resiliently because we know storms will come in the future. And just one example is we are in the midst of approving $685 million for drinking water and wastewater system repairs and upgrades. This money comes from EPA, from the federal disaster bill. We have allocated $86 million of the $685, and the key requirement for every single project is that the rebuild must be more resilient than what was there before. And when I got this job, I had no idea I'd be visiting quite so many wastewater treatment plants. It's been interesting, and to see the damage to them and how they've been patched together, but this funding will help make sure that these are more resilient, stronger systems in the future. A lot of other Helene stuff, but that's like the biggest dollar one. Second, an issue you all are intimately familiar with is forever chemicals, like PFAS, 1,4-dioxane, trying to reduce human exposure to these dangerous chemicals, cancer-causing other health effects. 3.5 million North Carolinians have tap water with PFAS levels higher than the EPA standard that will go into effect in 2031. And the department's view is the best way to protect people is to reduce the discharges at the source rather than requiring utilities to clean that stuff out, which is really expensive, and that would probably get passed on to ratepayers. So that's the department's stance on that one. And I know you guys are working on both of those rules today. Third issue is resilience to storms. Like I mentioned, we know these storms are going to keep coming. They're more intense and more frequent. DEQ is the Stein administration's lead on resilience issues. We recently hired an assistant secretary for resilience. It's Dr. Kathy Dello, who for the past 6 years has been the state climatologist over at NC State. She's tremendous. One program I'll highlight in our sphere of resilience is our flood resiliency blueprint. The legislature appropriated $20 million to create this plan and then $96 million to fund specific projects in the first 6 river basins that were included in the legislation. And we have thus far approved 72 projects for $35 million that has leveraged another $43 million. And what the blueprint is, it is a tool that a local government can look at on the screen, and it identifies options for them to implement to reduce their flooding. And it gives estimated costs and all these things, everything from enlarged culverts to stream restoration to different policy changes. And so it is a tool we're trying to get into the hands of every single local government so they can build more resiliently in the future. This is a time of uncertainty at our department. It's a time of uncertainty for everyone, let's be honest. But federal budget, I guess they have one for 2 months. We did not have to furlough anyone in this most recent shutdown, which is good. We don't know what's going to happen before the next deadline in January. But we do have a large concern, which is the administration eliminated the Solar for All program, which was $156 million to North Carolina to fund solar panels on the homes of 12,000 low and middle income families, which would have saved them money and reduced emissions. 23 different attorneys general have filed suit on that one, including North Carolina's Attorney General, Jeff Jackson. So we're hopeful that the courts will come through, but we don't know. Another uncertain thing is just, rules keep changing from EPA, so we have to adapt to those, and you all know how that goes. Moving on to the state budget, we don't have one. You all know this. Although there was a mini budget that cut $2.2 million worth of vacancies at our department. And that is a problem for us because a lot of what we do is reviewing permits, inspecting sites, and we have to do more of those every year than we used to because it's a growing state. There's greater demand. So on the one hand, there's greater demand. There are legislators and others who want us to do permitting faster, and yet there are fewer people to do that work. So the math doesn't really add up there. Good news is our vacancy rate is at 8% across the department. It was in the 20s during COVID. So we feel really good about, and I want to thank my colleagues for hiring lots of people in the last year. And speaking of permits, we do about 40,000 of them a year. That's why we need more people rather than fewer people to do that. Another budgetary concern we have is with our air quality program. Not their fault, but a law the legislature passed will go into effect soon as EPA approves this, which they will. It's just a matter of time, which is we are going from 19 counties that did automobile emissions inspections down to 1 county, Mecklenburg. So, and there's a fee on each one of those that went to the division to run their programs. So the division will lose $2.4 million for operating, which I believe is 11% of the division's budget. Significant problem. So we are working with the legislature whenever they come back to do budgeting to get that $2.4 million hole filled, because that is a big problem. Good news for air quality is we are now more than 10 years in a row, every single day, in attainment with Clean Air Act standards, which is a real testament to this commission in the Division of Air Quality. It's a great thing. And one other piece of good news I'll just share, and I'll almost be done, is recently we had a big ceremony for our 750th brownfield cleanup and redevelopment, turning a contaminated urban place into, in the 750th was actually a new apartment complex for middle income folks, mixed income folks in Winston-Salem. It was great. There was this woman there who was 99, and she grew up in that neighborhood, and she got to move into an apartment that used to be an abandoned site, and she said it's the best place she had ever lived in her whole life. And she's now 100, but she was 99 at the time and was by far the most compelling speaker on the day, just because she had that personal story. And these brownfields projects make a difference like that everywhere they are. So I guess I'll just wrap up because I know you guys have a big agenda. You all have lots of important issues to deal with, and they matter to people because it's about protecting public health, protecting the environment, supporting a strong economy. And I know you take this responsibility seriously. You put in a ton of time, and I really appreciate not only the time, but your expertise and your insights and your thoughts and your willingness to work together to try and find the solutions that work best for the people of North Carolina. So I just want to end by thanking every single one of you for the effort and the commitment you bring to this commission, because it really does make a difference in everybody's life in this state. Thank you.
Very good. And thank you for what you do as well, too. You've come in.
Sure.
You want to take questions or any questions if you have
I'll
them?
take questions if you got them.
Anyone have any questions for the secretary? Yes, Commissioner Yarborough.
I just want to personally thank you. He came up and it's helping us in Haywood County with the floods, and it's made a whole lot of difference, and got his boots on and dirty, and I appreciated you seeing there.
Thank you. It was a great trip. Appreciate you being there.
Any other questions? All right. They're letting you off easy, or you're letting us off easy, one of the two. We would love to have you come back whenever you can come back. We know you're busy, but the more we see you here, the more we like it, and the more we continue to be a team. So thank you for coming today, and safe travels for the rest of your day to the
Thank
mountains
you.
too.
Thank you. Great to see you all. Have a great meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, as we continue through preliminary matters, we'll move to the minutes. We may take a little bit more time with minutes today than we have before. Well, maybe we'll take less. Maybe I'm gonna be hopeful. We tried something different this time. Give credit to Director Rogers and his staff and Lois and her team, but basically what happens is we've got a transcript of about 80 pages that comes out of the average one of these meetings. And when we try to reduce it down, it's really hard to even get it to 40 or 60 manually. It takes a lot of time. And so for everybody, new members, the official record is a recording anyway. So what's most important is some of the conversations and the motions and the actions that was taken in our written minutes, so people can see the flow. If anybody ever wants to listen to the recordings, they're always available. And Ellie does, and she will make sure if you want to listen to the recording, she'll probably listen to them with you if you like her to, as counsel. But what we did this time was we took those big public meeting transcripts and dropped them into a couple of little tools to summarize and gave them some prompts. And you have what you have before you after we went through and tried to clean them up after the prompts. Now, you'll see a little difference because we're dialing it in. September was the first one we did, and I like it the best. I don't know about Richard, but I liked it the best. We did July, and it looked a little different. So we've tried to line them together. So pardon if there's any, it looks a little clunky, but we're really optimistic that doing it this way will give the commissioners a lot less stuff. Nobody wants to read 20 or 40 pages of minutes. And at the same time, it meets our transparency intent to make sure the minutes are published in writing. And then for goodness sakes, it sure does save staff a lot of time. They can focus on the higher level editing and not just grinding through every sentence of a transcript. So we think it's good overall. And with that, I'd ask for, let's start with this. You guys read the minutes. Does anybody have any overarching comments on the minutes before we move to review and adopt each one? Were they better? The newer members don't know, but the older members, does everybody feel like they were concise enough, even though they were much shorter than usual?
I like the format. I think the key thing to capture in the minutes are the motions, the seconds, the votes, and if there are key points of discussion that require follow-up. So I think that last factor, maybe one we need to keep an eye on to make sure we are capturing those things. But as long as we capture that and we have a record of what we need to follow up on in the future, I think it's a great improvement.
To that point too, I will say this, we saw that as well. And one of the things that we did was with the director comments, they're already on the website for everybody, for the public and us. So if you notice, we tried to reference those to that link. And then the commissioner comments, we just kind of reference back to the recording. It's really hard to ask a tool or even us to say what was significant when we go around the horseshoe at the end, because we all think it's significant. But if you thought there was something in the conversations, I know Kevin, you had one yesterday in the committee meeting minutes, but we're always open to adding key remarks if we left something out. But short of that, I don't want to try to say that one commissioner's comments were more important than the other, or one topic was more important than another. So we let the recording do that, but we'll work through that as time goes on. So hearing no other comments on that, let's go to the July 10th minutes. Do we have any corrections, comments, or we're ready for a motion if someone make a motion to approve? Okay, motion to approve. Commissioner Yarborough, do we have a second? Commissioner Keen seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? I thought you looked over here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. September 11th, any comments there or any corrections?
Just a correction that my name was misspelled on the vote, record of a vote.
We'll start catching that. We do have a few longer names and different names this time, and Commissioner Chmielewski has that name too, so we'll get that right and in the future, so we'll get it right now. Any other changes? Okay, hearing none with that modification, do I have a motion to approve? Commissioner Tweedy, do I have a second? Commissioner Ellison beat you to it, that's fine. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, at this time, going to action items. Let me talk a little bit about the agenda as we go through the action items. I talked to Director Rogers yesterday about the agenda. I don't want us to go, we had civil remissions scheduled. I assume they still are scheduled. I don't want us to go much past 2 today. I'm not putting a limit on it. We've got a long agenda. If we get to the agenda and we have to drop something off, we'll drop the director comments off because those are online, and I appreciate all the work the directors do to do that. But if it gets to be long, some of you may want to leave anyway and not wait around for that. So we would drop that off, and then the High Rock Lake information item, we may drop that off if we get to running a little bit long, because I know the division really wants to talk about the biosolids, the PFAS and biosolids. But generally speaking, we need to get through the action items today. And if things need to drop off, we'll start kind of at the end and start dropping information items off for the second time, or we'll hear motions or discussion among the commission. Okay? All right. So at this time, by the bylaws, we have an election in the odd years of the chair and vice chair. You guys are familiar with bylaws. The chair and the vice chair serve on a 2-year time frame until their terms run out. And then there's procedures in there if terms run out or people resign or whatever. So at this time, I anticipate and expect to be renominated as chair. So with that, per Robert's Rule of Order, I'm going to turn the election of the chair over to the vice chair, to Vice Chair Reardon, to conduct the election of the chair.
Well, thank you, Chairman Solomon. It is, as Chairman Solomon said, the responsibility of this commission to elect a chair and a vice chair to serve a 2-year term. There is some structure to this, so we'll follow Robert's Rules of Order there. So what I'll do in a moment, I'll call any of the commission members to raise your hand and make a nomination. I will accept that. And at the end of those nominations, we'll have to make a motion to close the nomination. So we'll need a motion and a second and discussion and a vote on that. So we'll do that, and then we'll announce who the new chair is. Having said that, we will get started. If anyone of the commission members would like to nominate someone then to be chair, I'll be glad to accept that nomination. Okay?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Commissioner King? Yes, sir.
yes, nominate J.D. Solomon.
Okay. Thank you for that nomination, and the commission will accept the name of J.D. Solomon to be chair. Are there other nominations that anyone would like to bring forth? Okay. We're going once, going twice. Anyone else? Okay. Having said that, I will need to make a motion I need a motion to close the nomination process. Will someone make a motion to close the nomination process? Yes. Commissioner Edison.
I move we close the nomination process.
Fantastic. I have one motion to close it. I need a second. I have a second by Commissioner Baumgartner. Is there any discussion for the commission? Having no discussion,
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there any way to ask for an extension on this vote, just for us, the new members who've had very little experience with this?
Madam Council, I think that with all commission members being present, I think that it's the responsibility of the commission to go forward. Any comments from council?
Yeah, so your bylaws say that the nominations and elections happen in odd numbered years at the November meeting. So it is in your bylaws. Arguably, if you have a 2/3, you can make a motion, get a second, and you would need a 2/3 vote to override the bylaws in order to change that time.
Any other discussion? Having heard none, I will call upon a vote to close the, no.
Yeah, you got the motion and the close. You need to vote on the motion.
So can I have a vote to close the nominations? All in favor of closing, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. So we have a vote and the motion, so I figure that is complete at that point.
Yeah, so if you can. Who's in favor?
Right. So now we will entertain a vote for J.D. Solomon to be the chair of the commission. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. You want a hand up?
Let's do a hand, sir. All of those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes. Okay. Having that passed now, it is the responsibility of the commission to recognize J.D. Solomon as the chair of the commission.
Okay, and let me say thank you first, but let me keep the flow going. So as the newly elected chair, we'll move to electing the vice chair. Okay, and we'll do that in a similar format. We'll take nominations for the vice chair, followed by a motion to close the vote and a vote to close the vote. Or the nominations, I should say, and then we'll vote by affirmation with the hands in the affirmative. Okay, so do we have a motion? Commissioner Yarborough for vice chair? You have a nomination?
Nomination for Joe Reardon as vice chair.
A nomination for Joe Reardon for vice chair. Are there other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the voting for vice chair or the nominations for vice chair. Commissioner Ellison, as we
I
move
move
forward.
we close nominations for vice chair.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, and we'll go back over to Jarrett Wright. I saw him raise his hand first. So Commissioner Wright seconds that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion for Joe Reardon for vice chair? To close nominations. I'm getting ahead of myself. To close nominations, all in favor of closing nominations? Say aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, now we'll go down. We have one candidate. We will go down and do the affirmation of yes. You don't have to vote against, but all in favor of Joe Reardon for vice chairman, please raise your hand. Okay. You got everybody? Okay, and I believe that passes. That passes. So congratulations to Vice Chair Reardon for being drafted into a second term.
Thank you, sir.
So, and I do appreciate the work of the vice chair. The vice chair is essential for helping keeping the schedule going, for helping me make the right hearing officer assignments, for filling in for the chair when the chair's not here, and generally giving me good advice and being acceptable whenever I need him. So I really appreciate what Joe has stepped in to do in the last 6 months and now continues on for his term. So thank you very much, Commissioner Reardon. Okay, now we're going to go through a series of action items. That would be what I call kind of what's going to be our core agenda for today. We do have some 30-day waivers that may shape that agenda today, but for now, let me say these 5. The first one is a rule amendment to the lab rule, so we need to give it the full attention that we would normally do in adopting rules. But we do have a series, I'm just mentioning this for staff, of really rules review and readoption, and they're mainly scheduling type things or whether they're essential or not essential. So I would just say to the staff, please be diligent in what you present to us, but please also be concise so that we preserve as much time for the more difficult topics that may come later after this. So, all right. So Beth Swanson requests approval for hearing officer's report, regulatory impact analysis, and adoption of the rule amendments to laboratory certification 15A NC AC02H 0804.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I try to keep this very short. So the proposed amendments are to add 2 new parameters to our list of certifiable parameters, the total nitrogen in 0804B and the pharmaceutical pollutants in 0804C. And there was a question last time, you might not be able to see that, or you probably can't see that, but there was a question last time about what pharmaceutical pollutants are, and those are just basically analytes as defined in table IF of the 40 CFR. So that's what we're using as those pollutants. We had a public comment period, August 1st through September 30th. We did not get any comments. And then we had a public hearing on September 25th, and we didn't have any speakers. And so with the hearing officer report, I'm not sure, does Commissioner Gibson need to read that, or should I read that, or just?
If you can read that when it's
Okay.
time, yeah.
At this time, okay. So, well, then that's the last thing other than our requested action, which is division is requesting the EMC approve the hearing officer's report, approve the final regulatory impact analysis, and adopt the proposed rule amendments for 15A NC and AC 02H 0804, parameters for which certification may be requested as presented in the report.
Question real quick, Avi, before you get off this party, regulatory impact analysis. I know we have to approve that too, and did you have any comments on that or the results of that from a staff perspective?
Don't remember having any comments on that. No, we
Yeah, but
don't.
do
We
you have
didn't.
any from staff perspective? Is there any?
Any
expenses
comments
or
on that?
hardships?
It's going to be very helpful for the people who originally requested it, the Department of Agriculture. They requested that because it was going to be a lot cheaper test and less time expensive, time inclusive. And that was why they requested that, and safer analytes or reagents and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gibson, you were the hearing officer, and any comments or anything to add to
No
that?
comments. There were no comments at all at the hearing. Nobody.
Any unique thoughts either? I think this is pretty straightforward, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to make the motion here to?
Sure. I move to approve the request for the proposed revisions to 15A NCAC 02H 0.0804 as suggested, to add the parameters total nitrogen and pharmaceutical pollutants to the list of certifiable parameters to be adopted by the commission.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Mr. Tweedy makes the second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
There's some other conversation happening over in this corner. At least I'm hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
Is there an office? Okay, I was just wondering. Okay, thank you.
Is it IT interference? Can you hear it? I mean, is it IT from the speakers or is it coming through
It's
the
coming
wall?
through the walls. It's coming through the walls or the ceiling.
It does sound like a speaker, though, like somebody's listening to a radio somewhere.
Can,
We'll look into that.
Richard or Sushma, I don't see Sushma right now, but can when y'all have somebody on staff maybe take a look at that at some point?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving to the next item, request for 30-day waiver and request for approval for the schedule for readoption as part of the periodic review of existing rules 15A NC AC 02I, Dan Hirschman. Let me say this on the 30-day waiver. Again, I think we said it yesterday. One of the things I've tried to do to help staff and really to help everybody in this is we have to go through this whole preliminary stuff of necessary and unnecessary and then getting the schedule worked out with RRC. Technically, because these are rules, the bylaws require a 30-day waiver. What I've told staff is because that's pretty procedural, pretty administrative. If they want to go back-to-back days with that and not wait 30 days and redo the presentation, it also helps them with the schedule just to compress a little bit. That in most cases, unless we indicated beforehand, it was, 30-day waiver would be acceptable. We'll have to vote on the 30-day waivers officially by the bylaws and then vote on the action. But when the rule comes back, when we modify the rule and it goes to public, we will still have the 30-day waiver in effect. So we're not trying to get around the time between the committee and the EMC to listen to any rule changes. This part's just required by statute, so we're just kind of having to do that per the bylaws. Everybody follow that? Should s- Okay.
So I apologize for missing the conversation. But,
Okay, so for our rules, and this isn't for it's almost backwards at times. You'd think it'd be that way for quasi judicial because you'd have minutes and all that. But for our rules, it's been long-standing way back from the beginning that we have a 30-day period between the time the committee hears the rules and the full EMC hears the rules. Now, in the old days, I'm told that wasn't such a big deal because the EMC met 10 times a year. We basically met every month, so 30 days was the next meeting. Now what happens is we get 60 days in between the meetings and we still have the 30-day rule. So things come up to where we say this really needs to happen for a regulatory purpose or funding purposes or something needs to be happening. So we can do a 30-day waiver to hear the rule out of committee. The committee votes on it. And then if we vote on a waiver here as a full EMC, then we can hear the full rule and adopt it the same day. Okay, instead of waiting 30 days. But we have to have a waiver to hear the rule that just maybe came through the committee yesterday before we take action on what the committee took action on yesterday.
and it's generally sort of a case by case, or are there
Yes.
criteria that would trigger?
No, it's case by case and we have some interesting discussions. Sometimes people that hate 30-day waivers advocate for them and want them on through. And sometimes people, the opposite, that love them will fight to hold them back. It is a way to have us all kind of cool down and think about it a little bit, in theory, before we move on. Mr. Ellison, you want to add something?
I just would point out that we have a train load of rule updates and a lot of them are not controversial. They're relatively administrative, critical, but stuff that's going to go unanimously. And this just kind of helps us keep the train moving.
So I think, Dan, before you talk, we probably need to do the 30-day waiver now to hear this rule. This was heard before the steering committee yesterday. These are the 2I rules that affect the way we do declaratory rulings and requests for what I call private rulemaking from third parties, not the department. And some definitional type things like public hearings and stuff. That's what these are. They're part of what the overall EMC needs to do as business. And so we want a 30-day waiver for those so Dan can process those and those go to the RRC, I think this month or next month, before our next meeting. So that's the reason for the 30-day waiver. So hearing what this is about, do we have a motion for a 30-day waiver on the 2I? Commissioner Ellison, second.
I move we do the 30-day waiver on the proposed readoption of 15 ANC AC02I.
Okay. Have a second? Commissioner Baumgartner, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it passes unanimous. Councilor Hirschman, you have the floor.
All right, I will be brief on this rule. Thank you, Chairman Solomon. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dan Hirschman, General Counsel for DEQ. Yesterday, as Chairman Solomon pointed out, the steering committee approved the rule readoption schedule for 15A NCAC2I. So I am here today to request that the full committee approve the readoption schedule. Again, 15A NCAC02I deals with delegations, rulemaking hearings, notice procedures, petitions for rulemakings, and declaratory rulings. There are 11 rules total. All of them have been categorized as necessary by staff and this commission. There was a comment period on that determination that ran from January through April of this past year. No public comments were received, and the Rules Review Commission approved that determination in August of this year. This is the proposed readoption schedule. You can see that staff will complete drafting any necessary rule amendments through April of this coming year. In July, the steering committee will approve the draft rule amendments, and then it will come before the full committee, the full commission, with the regulatory impact analysis, July, September of 2026. In November 2026, it will come back to the full EMC to approve the RIA and the draft rules so that they can proceed to public comment. The public comment period will begin in December of 2026. The comment period will end in February 2027. Then there will be a period in which staff develops the hearing officer's report, and then the rule will come back to this commission for final adoption 2 years from now in November 2027. DEQ recommends, well, we've already approved the 30-day waiver. We recommend that you approve the readoption schedule for 15A NCAC 02I as presented to proceed to the Rules Review Commission. Any questions?
Questions for staff? Okay. I'm the chair of the steering committee. So I'm gonna let you, Commissioner Reardon, make the motion or any other discussion you want to add from yesterday's discussion of this.
I think we've already done the 30-day waiver, right?
Yes, so you just do the second one.
So we move that we recommend approval of the readoption schedule for 15A NCAC 021 as presented to proceed to the Rules Review Commission. 02I.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a second on that? Commissioner Bailey, any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Counselor Hirschman. Anybody else wants to talk to the lead counsel for DEQ while he's here on the podium? We had the secretary.
Got one more too.
Oh, you do?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
I can take questions now though.
No, go ahead. Oh, you do have the next agenda item. I didn't look for the names. Okay, let's do the same.
This one does not
We
require
don't
a
need the
30-day
30-day
waiver.
waiver. You're right.
This
Okay,
is the first time.
fire away.
All right. Next agenda item is DEQ's request to approve the agency's final determinations regarding the necessity of Rule 15A NCAC 02A. DEQ has determined this set of rules to be necessary, and we seek approval of that final determination so that the report can proceed to the Rules Review Commission as part of the periodic rules review process for the readoption of existing rules. So the rules at issue today are found at 15A NCAC 02A. These rules govern EMC's organization, delegations of authority, and the creation of the NPDES committee. I'll note that there's a lot of antiquated language in this rule. It hasn't been updated in a long time, so this is definitely due for some review.
So let me stop there, Dan, just to give it. When we previously did this, and I was chair of 10 years ago when we did this, this was marked at necessary and somehow it got by the rules review and readoption. So these rules have not been adopted in 20 or 30 years, some of them, these handful of rules. It still says NCDH NR, I believe. That's how old some of the references are. I don't know how we missed that last time, but we are catching up this time. And so to remind everybody, and I know you will, Dan will remind you, but now we only classify it as necessary and unnecessary. If we call it unnecessary, it goes away when the ORC sees it. There's no debate. If we call it necessary, we can still change these or eliminate them. It's just that if we put an unnecessary tag on them, they go away. And I don't think these need to go away, but proceed on.
Thank you, Chairman. So there are 3 rules as part of this rule set, all categorized as necessary. The comment period was July 14th through September 22nd of this year. We received no comments. The final determinations are then categorized as necessary. The rules to be readopted by a date approved by the RRC once they see this. Here's a schedule for how this process works. You can see what I just outlined. We are at the yellow step, which is action to approve these final determinations by you all. And then the report is due to the Rules Review Commission by the 20th of this month. So after you all take action today, that action will go to the RRC. They will review that. If they approve it, it will come back to the committee, and then actually it'll come back to the EQ, and then the rules readoption process will really begin in earnest. So again, we recommend that EMC approve the final determinations that these rules are necessary, 15A NCAC 02A, as part of the periodic rules review.
Let's get it right one time, right? So we do recommend that the EMC approve the final determinations for 15A NCAC 02A periodic rules review report to proceed to the RRC Rules Review Committee.
Have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Baumgartner seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. I'll also say Counselor Hirschman, we just saw I and we saw A. I know they're on slightly different schedules. Anything to ease the burden of the EMC to put those together on a similar timeline would be helpful.
Thank you, Chairman. Once we have the approval from RRC and we develop the proposed schedule for O2A, we will dovetail it with, our plan is to dovetail it with the O2I rules so that they will move concurrently for efficiency's sake.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming today. Okay, everybody good for a little bit longer? Let's go through them. Okay, so request for a 30-day waiver and request for approval of the schedule of readoption as part of the periodic review for existing rules 15A NC 02G, and Mr. Peel will give that presentation.
Good morning, Chairman Solomon and Commission members. My name is Linwood Peel, and I'm with the Division of Water Resources. And today I'm here to request approval of the 30-day waiver and request approval of the schedule for readoption as part of the periodic review of existing rules for 15A NCAC 02G rules.
And let me stop you because we got to do the 30-day waiver. But the subject of the 02G rules is what, if you'll remind the commission?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Allocation of the Jordan Lake water storage.
Okay. So again, this is just for the schedule. So I'll ask you again for a 30-day waiver so that we can take action on this and then move it to the RRC. So do we have a approval of a waiver for this particular item, 30-day waiver? Commissioner Tweedy, did you say yes?
No, but there's a slide that says.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Linwood, we worked together a long time. He's always got one on me. He's ready for me.
I'll move the commission approve a waiver of 30-day requirements. With the deadline specified in 26 NCAC 05 on those due.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Tweedy. Do we have a second? Commissioner Bailey does the second on that one. Any discussion on the 30-day waiver? Call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Have at it, Mr. Peel.
Okay. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Environmental Management Commission approved the 2025 periodic review of the rules report for 15A NCAC 02G rules on July 10th. And the Rules Review Commission approved the report as submitted by the Environmental Management Commission on August 28, 2025. And the final determination were following the 61st day after the Rules Review Commission is submitted to the Administrative Procedure Oversight Committee at that time. And the determination was for all the rules to be necessary, and it was 7 of them, and the allocation of the Jordan Lake water supply storage, and that was the only set of rules left in O3G. And the rulemaking timeline, I proposed timeline, and yesterday it was noted that we're starting at the end of December 26th as I presented. And the reason is that DEQ has all of the rules from all the different divisions that's going through the EMC, and we try to place it in a time that there's a lull, because there are several months where there's hundreds of rules coming through, and we're trying to put in that time. But just to go over the timeline and the rules we have, the schedule we have here is also in your attachment A. We're going to start at the end of December with the stakeholder engagement process. and then followed by the rule drafting, physical note drafting, and hopefully the approval from the Office of State Budget and Management. Then we would like to bring it back to the Water Allocation Committee to be approved to come through the Environmental Management Commission, followed by the approval to notice, then followed by the public hearings and the comment period, and of course, working with the EMC hearing officer to develop the hearing officer report. And finally, September 2028, hopefully, the Environmental Management could readopt these rules. And the final deadline would be December 1st, 2028. So I'm here to request that the approval of the readoption schedule for O2G, the allocation of this Jordan Lake water storage as presented in attachment A in the previous schedule.
Steve? Mr. King? Any comments on this? Did this come through your committee or what water allocation? Did I miss that, Robin? It came through yours, Commissioner Smith? Any comments from the committee on this one,
I
Commissioner
don't
Smith?
recall any comments from the committee, no.
Okay. Here none, do you have a recommendation or a motion, Commissioner Smith?
So I move approval of the readoption schedule for the O2G rules, the Jordan Lake water allocation.
Okay. We have a second on that. Commissioner Tweedy makes a second. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Ellison?
Just could you give us the 30-second elevator summary of who's involved in this, the allocation? Some of us are not familiar with this rule.
Okay, yes. The Jordan allocation of Jordan Lake rules, where the Corps established the reservoir itself, and we have 9 units of local governments, water systems that purchase allocation in the Jordan Lake Reservoir. And these rules just lay out the process in which they can put forth an application and the reasons of the water, and it has stipulations on how the water could be shared within that watershed.
Okay, thank you.
And Linwood, you've completed 3 rounds. This will be the 4th round?
No, we completed 4.
4 rounds. And
The next round, and we have a remaining less than 8% of the allocation left. So it's about a little less than 8 million gallons need to be allocated in round 5.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Peel. Okay, our next topic, and then we'll take a break after this one. Request a 30-day waiver and request for approval of the schedule, again, for readoption as part of the periodic review for existing rules O2L, O2N, O2O, and O2P. And Jessica Monty presented this yesterday in the Groundwater Committee, I believe, so.
Good morning, Chairman Solomon, members of the commission. I'm presenting the schedule for readoption for the periodic review of O2L, NO, and P. And these rules are pertaining to groundwater quality standards and classification and underground storage tanks and petroleum releases and sources. So we'll start with a 30-day waiver.
Okay, so we need to do the waiver process on this one. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Baumgartner that chairs the committee.
30-day waiver.
Commissioner Baumgartner makes the motion for a 30-day waiver. Do we have a second? Commissioner Hardison makes a second. Any discussion on the 30-day waiver? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, proceed on, Commissioner.
Right. So as mentioned, these rules are pertaining to groundwater classification standards and underground storage tanks. The slide here gives a breakdown of what the topics are for each subchapter. For O2L, O100 through O300, those rules are administered by the Division of Water Resources. And then the rest of the rules are administered by Division of Waste Management, underground storage tank section. The O2L 400 through 0500 are regarding risk-based assessment, corrective action for underground storage tanks and releases from above ground storage tanks and other sources. O2N is regarding the criteria and standards for USTs. O2O is their financial responsibility, and O2P is pertaining to the commercial leaking petroleum underground storage tank cleanup fund. So the periodic review reports were approved by the EMC at their July 10th meeting. The Rules Review Commission approved those reports at their August 28th meeting, and the periodic review report determinations became effective on October 29th. All of the rules in these subchapters were categorized as necessary, so they will be put through the readoption process. We are breaking them up into three groups, the one being that DWR will present, and then the second group is for the UST section, O2N, O2O, and O2P together. And then Group C is the O2L, O400 through O500 rules, which are DWM UST. And those are on a separate schedule because that same group of staff is already working on a rule that's going through readoption right now, O2T 1500. So this gives them a little time to complete the one, start the next. And the schedule, the final deadline for the schedule is September 1st, 2028. So
Questions for staff or for Committee Chair Baumgartner?
No comments.
No comments from you?
No comments.
Any
The
questions?
committee thought it was good to go ahead and push this on through.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve, Commissioner Baumgartner?
Yes, move that we approve the schedule for readoption as part of the periodic review of the existing rules for 15A NCAC O2L, 2N, O2O, and O2P.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Commissioner Keen seconds that. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Okay, and any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, it is a few minutes before 10, and let's take about a 10-minute break till 10:10, and then we'll come back and probably run to 11:30 or 12, depending on how these next few items go on the agenda. Okay. Earlier, and I didn't tell you this earlier, but as we go talk about some of these topics, potentially make sure you speak into your mic, and anytime you can announce your name if you've got something really poignant to say, because sometimes these discussions start rolling and it's hard to keep up with who said what. So, but speak clearly into the mic. Okay. Next on the agenda are two 30-day waivers. I put these on as waivers and for potential action because there's been public interest in making these, getting these to move into public comment period. I did not want to put pressure on the committee. I'll never try to put too much pressure on the committee by putting the 30-day waiver in front of them. But as we looked at who was writing in, once the agenda got posted and any questions we're having, it became clear to me as chair and looking at the full agenda that there was a good chance that would come through committee yesterday in some form or another. And to move it to this commission to begin those discussions was not either inordinately pressuring the committee or rushing the topic. So it seemed appropriate to ask for the 30-day waivers on both 1,4-diox and PFAS. And if we approve the waivers, then we will hear the topics, both topics, and then we'll have, if we want to take action or actions plural, then there will be separate votes once we hear the staff report and the committee reports and have those discussions. But the key to that beginning is the 30-day waiver. I know some of you would maybe want to wait till January to hear these like the normal cycle. I've heard a lot of you say you'd want to go ahead and get on with it today. So the 30-day waiver is the first thing we'll do. Richard, I don't know if we can, if you have a slider, we'll just make the waiver to hear that.
We'll pull up the waiver slide for you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so this is not a staff recommendation. This is ours. Commissioner Keen, as the Water Quality Committee Chair, I will ask you to make this motion, if you will.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Division of Water Resources or move that the Division of Water Resources, the request that the Environmental Management Commission approve a waiver for the 30-day requirement for the proposed 1,4-dioxin monitoring and minimization rulemaking package.
And that was not an official motion in committee, but I think you had support for moving that to us yesterday as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Do we have a second on that motion?
Make a second on that motion.
Commissioner Reardon seconds the motion. Discussion on the 30-day waiver for 1,4-dioxane. Yes.
Just a question. This is Jennifer Orm-Zabaleta. So in the monitoring, it wasn't clear to me, is this monitoring going to include groundwater as well as surface water locations?
No, it'll just be surface water. We've done the groundwater previously by rule.
Okay, and so that is set. So this
That
is just a.
This will be a kind of a compatible thing for surface water.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? Let's raise hands on this one. All in favor, please indicate by aye and raising your hand. All in favor of the motion for a 30-day waiver?
Aye.
Good, seven. Doesn't, you, yay? Okay. Okay, so 30-day waiver fails for 1,4-dioxane. Okay. Let's move on to PFAS. Okay. Do the same exercise for Commissioner Keen.
The motion to honor the request of the Division of Water Resources that the Environmental Management Commission approve a waiver of the 30-day requirement for the proposed PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X monitoring and minimization rulemaking package.
Okay, do we have a second on that? Commissioner Ellison makes a motion to second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Raise your hand.
Hands again. Okay. Got 9. Let's hold hands up again, one more time. All in favor of the 30-day waiver, further discussion? Okay, motion fails. So we will not hear 1,4-dioxane or PFAS today, and we'll move those to January. You can go ahead and say that, Councilor.
Just to be clear, both of those votes had the majority, but in order to waive the 30-day requirement, the EMC requires a 2/3 vote. So we needed 10, neither vote got 10.
Okay, very well. Moving on to the agenda, that will skip us, put us not doing items 9 and 10, which is actually hearing and discussing PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. That will be a future day. And I'm sorry, 10 and 11. And so now we can move into information items. The first one being status on High Rock Lake, a nutrient management strategy rule. Joey Hester.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. Was expecting a little bit more time to listen till we jumped up, but I guess I'll dump you guys right into the High Rock update. So I'm here to give you an update on the procedure for rulemaking, rule development status in High Rock Lake. We are pushing forward with setting into motion a nutrient management strategy. It's been a productive conversation so far. We've had a lot of stakeholder engagement. So we'll dive right in. For a little bit of geographic scope here, so that we all know the area that we're talking about. This is the Upper Yadkin from High Rock Lake up into the headwaters, which go all the way to the outskirts of Blowing Rock. Includes quite a few municipalities, not many large ones, just Winston-Salem, Salisbury, Statesville, portions of High Point. A lot of ag land, a lot of pasture land, a lot of forest land. So it does go up into the Blue Ridge Parkway. And for reference, this will be our first nutrient management strategy that gets us into the mountains. So that's a new development for us. The watershed is approximately 55% forested. So that's an interesting piece of the puzzle for us when we start to talk about managing nutrient loads, and 26% agriculture. In general, the area is pretty low growth. A lot of these rural zones have at best they're holding steady on population growth. There are a few pockets up and down the Winston-Salem I-85 corridor where there is some population growth and some increase in development over the recent years. High Rock Lake itself is a Class B recreational water body. And so it's classified for primary recreation, surface water contact, swimming, skiing, that sort of thing. And then some reaches are classified as WS4, WS5 at the upper and the lower stretches of the lake, depending on where the adjacent surface water intakes are. So to give you an overview of the impairment that started this process, I was asked to keep this presentation as text light as possible, so it's a lot of visuals. We do have kind of what I'm calling to stakeholders a stacked impairment. That is not a technical term. I totally made it up. But these impairments do sort of interrelate here. There is a chlorophyll A issue that has been present for many decades. It was noted as early that I could find in the records as in the 70s. So it's a similar process to what we tend to see in the Falls Lake, Jordan Lake watersheds in the dammed Piedmont reservoirs. You've got a chlorophyll A impairment. The turbidity is pretty high. This is generally a very muddy river, the Yadkin. And what happens is these impairments that you're seeing, these are the most recent, the 2022 integrated report. The impairments do tend to shift a little bit with flow precipitation patterns, mainly because as the turbidity comes in off the main stem of the Yadkin, it settles out, and then the light penetration can actually allow the algal communities to grow. So you tend to see the chlorophyll A impairment in lower stretches, turbidity in the upper reaches, and then once the algal communities have a chance to really bloom, then you get the pH impairment that sort of stems from that. And we tell stakeholders that the pH, it's a little high, stays persistently high, and when people get out of the water, it tends to feel almost slick. Your skin feels sort of slimy. That's the pH affecting the way that people recreate. So one of the points to note here is that this is one of the more persistent and severe chlorophyll A impairments that we have in these dammed Piedmont reservoirs. Chlorophyll A readings in the summer months regularly exceed 50 micrograms per liter. It does have a site-specific standard that you approved back in 2022, a 35 microgram per liter seasonal geomean. So it is a pretty unique situation in terms of the number that we're aiming for, but just for reference for the statewide standard of 40 micrograms per liter, this one regularly exceeds well above that.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
Dissolved oxygen.
Dissolved oxygen, we don't have an impairment. Not right now. I don't know that there have been noted dissolved oxygen problems in the past, but it's not listed for DO at the present moment.
Yeah, because part of where I was thinking and going with this is, the idea of biological criteria and what you have living in these water bodies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Another question. You said
Absolutely.
the pH is relatively high. What are the ranges of pH that you're getting?
I actually don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember how high, but it is impaired on the 2022 list and has been for a number of integrated reports. So I don't know the pH number off the top of my head.
Can you get us that, just out of curiosity?
Absolutely.
I know it's referenced out there, but
Absolutely.
crazy start happening in water chemistry above 9. So
Sure.
if it's that
Sure.
high,
Certainly.
let's see.
Again, whoops, go back. Just to keep this visuals heavy, this is some of the conditions on site. I try to keep this as intuitive for stakeholders as possible. So I try to rely on a lot of visuals so folks understand what we're really talking about. We do get a lot of phone calls about the surface scum, the Lingbia woolii. It's your benthic mat algae that is in the picture on the right and the upper left. It's really an impediment to recreation. You get a lot of complaints just from concerned landowners in these shallow bays. They see it. They interact with it. It's physical. It's really imposing. It can actually interfere with like boat propellers, that sort of thing. So it's something that people notice a lot. Doesn't generally produce toxins, but certainly can. There are certain strains that can produce toxins. So that's the most prevalent, most obvious issue. But you do just get various algal communities blooming in different areas of the lake and different, portions of the water column throughout the year. And I took the bottom left photo. It was off the bridge at one of the boat launches on the mouth of the Yadkin at the sort of entry into the lake. And that was after about a 0.44, just under a half-inch rain event, 48 hours prior. So not significantly, it wasn't after a hurricane or anything. This is just, that tends to be what the Yadkin River looks like after these rain events. So that shows you sort of overview of what the issues are that stakeholders and citizens in the area tend to notice. So here is the backdrop. Here's the timeline. It has taken us a long time to get here. This is a very slow moving process. It did start with the first impairment in 2004. I think that's when you saw a lot of these water bodies initially impaired. And then we had intensive monitoring to sort of set our baseline. So from 2005 to 2010, that's when we did our intensive studies. And then we did develop a watershed and a lake nutrient response model. Those were contracted out. The watershed model was completed in 2012. The lake nutrient response model was completed in 2016. Now, theoretically, that would have been, we would have, jumped off from that point and dove straight into stakeholder engagement for rulemaking. But the nutrient criteria development process sort of inserted a next step into the whole trajectory. And we spent the next few years developing a site-specific chlorophyll A standard. That did culminate in 2022 after the Scientific Advisory Committee developed their report for what would eventually become the 35 microgram seasonal geomean, measured at 1 in 3 exceedance allowance. And then you did adopt the new site-specific standard in 2022. And finally, after all of those years, that let us move to the next stage where we could actually begin stakeholder engagement. So it began very informally. That was coincidentally right about the time I started with the department. And I did a lot of just informal touch base outreach with stakeholders. And that was meeting with anyone and everyone who would listen to anything that I had to say about what was happening, where this was coming from. I think it's a very different conversation in the Upper Yadkin area compared to, say, the one we're having in Falls Lake and Jordan Lake, because there's a lot of familiarity with rules, sort of the background, where they've come from, what the justification is. This is a very different part of the state for our group, for the non-point source planning branch. And so it was, certainly the learning curve was steep, and we wanted to take plenty of time to make sure that people understood where we were coming from with this. We put out some public signage in and around the lake at certain public access points so that we could get the word out about what was coming. We did start with a number of meetings with soil and water districts. I actually went to every board meeting in the watershed, any soil and water conservation district that had land area within the watershed boundary. I did attend in person, gave them a chance to ask questions. One of the fun ones, I went to the High Rock River Rats meeting. It was at someone's pool on their back porch. I have no idea who the group was, but I found their information online, and they invited me to join and speak for 5 or 10 minutes and just tell them what was going on. So I really did try to get out there as much as possible just to get my face in front of people and help them understand where this was all coming from. So we had 27 through phase 1 of our stakeholder engagement process. We had 27, well, these numbers actually are off a little bit. Overall, we have about 68 meetings that I have held in various formats, various sizes, sometimes to big auditoriums full of, timber professionals and loggers, other times a soil and water board meeting with 4 or 5 people in the room. So I have a master list, and it has come to 68 total. We've updated with a few of these, 28 meetings for general outreach, just sort of informal dialogue with stakeholders, and then 40 as part of our actual It's still informal engagement, but it is more structured. We have these 4 technical advisory groups that we formed to focus on these main parts of the puzzle. Experts from each sector in the ag space. We've got extension, we've got NRCS, we've got Division of Soil and Water Conservation, several actual farmers, pasture operators, poultry farmers, that sort of thing. We did have some environmental groups that joined us. A lot of the wastewater utility operators, they participated in the wastewater technical advisory group, and then some stormwater professionals, local governments, developers, that sort of thing. So we really tried to do a cross section of a lot of different experts, and we had sort of a 2-level hierarchy for engagement. We had the technical advisory groups that would focus on each of their specialities, and then a steering committee, which is kind of overarching. It isn't really a formalized sort of decision-making process, but we did have a charter, and we moved forward with separate conversations about each rule concept and how it all sort of fit together as a whole. The point of the steering committee was to be able to kind of step back and look at all of the different rule concepts and see how it would eventually move us forward in trying to restore water quality. The steering committee members, here is a collection of logos from each of the groups. We wanted to really get ahead of in trying to balance the perspective of all of our stakeholders. We wanted to have a good cross section of different interest groups. We certainly didn't want to weigh it in one direction or the other so that any interest group could kind of dominate the discussion or tend to pull us in a certain direction. And I think we have a really good group. It's been a very productive conversation. Everybody has participated honestly, earnestly, has attended as many of the meetings as possible. You see some local governments, Farm Bureau, Triad Real Estate Building Industry Coalition, Home Builders Association, DOT, Yadkin PD Basin Association, which is an association of wastewater dischargers and a monitoring coalition, Yadkin Riverkeeper, and then some soil and water representatives from both the district and the division level. So we really did have a good group of people. It's been a very productive dialogue so far. We have gotten to the point where we've started developing some preliminary drafts. They are still very much in flux because we're taking as much feedback as we possibly can as we move forward. The attachment that you have, the steering committee report, comes from, it stems from a lot of the dialogue that was generated over that 1.5 year period of our phase 1 of engagement. The steering committee did provide a list of recommendations to us. We always tried to toe a very careful balance between them feeling like we were taking input, but also being clear that there were certain obligations that we had to meet to restore water quality. And so that attachment is a list of recommendations they were providing to us that sort of contextualized all of the needs and the recommended steps that they thought they wanted to see in rule concepts. It was a really good document to sort of start the rule drafting process. That's what got us into that next year of actual rule text development. And current status, this is my last slide, again, to keep it as visual heavy as possible. We do have preliminary drafts for things like a riparian buffer rule. We're still working on some wastewater provisions and developing individual and group allocations for certain categories of dischargers. This is the first watershed where we have a notable presence of industry, which is pretty new for the non-point source planning branch. We generally deal with the publicly owned treatment works and fewer of the industry dischargers. And so we've had to sort of take some new steps there. And we do expect the model. I know we had a really big conversation yesterday in Water Quality Committee about the model approval process. I know that is asking a lot, and I know that you hearing that you have to approve 3 models is certainly a tall order, but we do expect the High Rock model, Lake Nutrient Response model, to have to be approved kind of in concurrence with the other 2, with Jordan and Falls. Don't have a specific timeline there, except that I have heard it would be presented by the Modeling and Assessment Branch in the early part of 2026. Obviously, that'll depend on agendas and where we can find space there. We have released some preliminary drafts to the public, either on the listserv or to the technical groups that are still working on them. But we do have some that haven't been developed at all. And we're still in the sort of conceptual design phase. So that's still ongoing. And then we do hope to bring draft rules in 2026. That's certainly predicated on how much progress we can make on Jordan and Falls. For context, they do have a rule readoption deadline, so there's a much firmer backstop on that side of things. High Rock is a little bit more open-ended. We don't have a firm sort of expiration date that we have to work against, but we do think that we can make some significant progress in trying to get you an initial round of draft rules at some point in 2026. We're making pretty good progress at the moment. And the last point I would make would be that we do have an unexpected vacancy that is going to set us back pretty significantly. So just to keep you aware that timeline may significantly change going forward.
Questions for Mr. Hester? Yes.
So on the models, do you run those through some type of independent external peer review? And then would you bring the model and that review to us to?
Absolutely. So the modeling assessment branch had what was a technical advisory committee, I believe, the TAC, and spent a number of years doing exactly that. I think one of my first meetings when I joined the state was at a High Rock TAC meeting back in 2013. And so there is a lot of paperwork already developed on that front that should at least give you a start into a lot of the review process. I know EPA had to step in. They were a part of the initial contracting, and they had to step in on the end phase to do some adjustments of the algal communities. They actually added extra algal communities because the initial run didn't include as many as they thought would be necessary. And so EPA also was an integral part of the model development process, and also a lot of public stakeholders and engagement on that front. So certainly there's a lot that we can pull.
Other questions for Mr. Hester? Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
You mentioned you had an unexpected vacancy. Are you going to be able to fill that position, or with budget cuts, are you prevented from filling it?
That will be my position. And that just happened. So we are going to fill that, but it may take some time.
I hope you're not announcing it now.
I'm sorry. It's just really bad timing. It is my position. Today is my last day.
Oh, well.
Sorry, I tried not to make that.
Rogers knew though. You didn't just find this out.
They did know, yes.
Hadn't gotten over it yet.
I'm sorry. That was just really bad timing.
We can ask you some really good questions then if today's your last day.
Well, Mr. Chairman, especially the question of whether you're leaving photographs of the river rats gathering by the swimming pool.
I did not photograph that one. I showed up and chatted and then hit the road. They were a great group. They had no idea who I was or why I was there, but they gave me some time, and I really appreciated that.
Let me ask you a couple questions, and I guess they'll be the sharp-ended questions probably, but over the years, we've heard from different groups. This does have a lot of ag land around the lake. You mentioned the industry. There's a lot of homeowners that have contacted me. This one's a little different in some ways than Jordan or Falls. So can you talk about some of the sharp issues that you still got remaining that you guys, because I hear there's some sharp issues, kind of like we hear on Jordan and Falls too, but what's a handful of those issues that you could frame for us?
The conversation about ag has been novel. We've certainly have had to think about this one differently than we have in the past. We have a lot of history with other nutrient strategies, and certainly the way that they all regulate agriculture is very similar. And we've learned a lot. I worked in the Department of Agriculture for 8 years, and I was doing data collection and reporting under those nutrient strategies. So I've seen it from both sides. High Rock is a very different watershed. This is mountainous terrain in some cases. It is a very pasture-dominated system, which is unique compared to Neuse Tar, Falls, and Jordan. Although Jordan is more pasture, it has very little actual just dedicated row cropping. Some certainly, but not as big a proportion of the ag space. And that has meant that we've had to take a new look at what we can do in pasture systems to improve nutrients and stream stability. And I think it's been a productive dialogue with the ag folks. They've been incredibly helpful through all of these meetings. I think you'll see some novel approaches here that we're proposing to take it in a kind of a new direction on that space. But I think that they work for stakeholders. I think they're as flexible as they can possibly be, and we can still point to actual improvements over time that we would expect. Wastewater is also a challenge. You don't have the history of a lot of the investments that have been made in other watersheds. And some of the technology is still pretty old. They haven't made a lot of investments, a lot of upgrades in recent years. A few facilities have, and a few are ongoing at this moment. But I think they're starting from a much more difficult baseline as far as coming into compliance with new nutrient allocations, new nutrient limits. And the stormwater space is also different for us. It's a much larger watershed in proportion to the receiving waters. The ratio of drainage area to actual reservoir area is a significant amount larger than even Jordan. So it's very different in trying to manage new development stormwater, infrastructure stormwater standards in an area that doesn't generally have much growth except in punctuated zones. So we're proposing a new way of looking at stormwater. We don't have a whole lot of firm details on that just yet. That's literally still under development. I don't even have a rule draft on that front. But it certainly has forced us to think about it very differently. And those are some, I like to think that they haven't necessarily generated any consternation among the stakeholders. I think everybody's been really diligent in trying to sort of see the commonalities and reach an understanding about where this strategy needs to take us over the next few decades. But certainly I understand that those are major points that people are noticing are going to take us in a different direction.
One more on the stakeholder process. And again, we hear this everywhere, but I guess first I'll say we're not quite as organized here, the stakeholders, as they are maybe on Falls or Jordan. And that may be an understatement or said wrong, but that's my perception. So correct me if that's wrong. They don't quite have the structure or the funding from the stakeholder side.
Not yet, no.
But I've also heard some stakeholders say, well, certain people want it on and they didn't get on, or their opinions were not appreciated. They were asked to get off. I hear things. So anything that you've heard on that, or any discrepancies with stakeholders or technical advisors or anything on High Rock in the past that?
I think we've had
should
an
know about?
open door policy since the beginning, and we've encouraged anyone and everyone to participate as much or as little as they possibly can. And I don't think we have gotten rid of anyone of any of the groups. People have selectively opted into, they've either taken different positions or stepped back from some of the commitments. But I think we've kept it. It's still pretty faithful to the initial concept that we had back in the late months of 2022.
Okay, fair enough.
Changed very much.
This question I had to ask. Commissioner Allison.
Can you give us just a quick overview of your sediment data? Sediment loading data?
I don't have any of that off the top of my head. I certainly can put something together for you.
Do you have suspended sediment data collection areas distributed across the watershed, or how are you determining the sediment inputs for your model?
So I don't know how the model was actually developed, because that was far before my time, but we do have a lakes assessment. We have some ambient monitoring stations in the lake itself, and certainly can provide that as part of an integrated report data collection. But I don't have, since we've focused a lot on the nutrient side of things, I haven't necessarily gotten into some of the quantitative side of the suspended solids and the sediment data.
But that's in the lake.
Sure.
But the source is throughout the watershed.
Oh, definitely. But we also have a pretty sparse ambient monitoring system within the upper Yadkin. There are certain pockets. The South Yadkin, I think, only has one ambient monitoring station in the whole drainage area. That's north of Statesville, sort of off into the west. So we have very little data from that part of the watershed. You have a little bit more up the main stem of the Yadkin, but it tends to be closer to the main stem we have the really low density resolution up into the tributaries.
And what sediment parameters were they monitoring where you do have data? Just turbidity?
Turbidity and total suspended solids, yes, yes. But again, that's way before my time. And I have model reports that'll quantify that. Tetra Tech was the contractor. I don't know a lot of that off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jaspers, you have a question? Don't have another one. Any other question? Commissioner Yarborough?
Comment about that area. I can remember reading some stories in the Civil War about the Yadkin and being too thick to drink and too thin to plow. It's the Yadkin soils there, and that whole watershed is full of those type of soils. So it's gonna, the turbidity piece will, the picture you showed could be done 100 years ago and it wouldn't make any difference. So it's just a different, unique place.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of it that I would hope that this group would do is the amount that agriculture is there and forestry is a storage opportunity too. And we don't ever look at it that way. And so it's, without them, it's, you keep putting concrete like you do in Falls and others, you're going to end up with less storage and more runoff. So it's something to have a value. And I don't think agriculture ever gets that in most of these things. So enough comment.
Any other discussion? Comments, discussion? Thank you, Mr. Hester. Congratulations on whatever you, or good luck wherever you're going.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming before us today on your last day. It's
Thank you.
much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, next information item is a DEQ's biosolid study report. I haven't seen the formal report. I have seen some part of the presentations, but, and y'all have seen this, but I don't think there's actually a report, but this is a presentation that Julie Gribb will give us. And probably will generate a few questions, Julie, so.
Okay. Well, as usual, I'm coming before you with a non-controversial topic. Richard doesn't assign me the re-adoption rules. I'd much prefer to do those. So I'm here today to tell you about our biosolid study that DWR did. We have shared the data with the participants, and we would like to put the results up on a dashboard on a website. We showed the participants how we would do that, and they had a lot of concerns. So we are going to continue to work with them and show them another version and make sure that we've answered any of their questions. We want to be accurate on what we display. We were hoping to do that before the end of the year, but we'll see how this and other things go. Okay. The purpose of this study was really to get an initial understanding of the impacts of PFAS on wastewater treatment plants and biosolids. We also decided to sample some fields where municipal industrial biosolids were repeatedly land applied. I should note there are currently no North Carolina state or federal regulations on PFAS in biosolids, and this study was completely exploratory and not designed to develop such standards. We very much want to thank the participants in this study. We had to go to some fields and all sorts of places where we had to get permissions. Everybody was very cooperative, and we really appreciate that. We do want to make it clear that while the number and type of facilities were not intended to represent a statistically significant sample size, the findings do provide important information on the range of PFAS concentrations measured and highlight opportunities for more comprehensive study designs moving forward. We did use test method 537.1, and we used that instead of 1633 because we wanted to see any Camorra's signature compounds that could be in those results. This study that I'm presenting today does not summarize Camorra's signature compounds, that we did not finish doing an analysis on that, so that will have to be another time. All right, so biosolids. Biosolids are sewage sludge that has been treated to meet the requirements, EPA requirements, okay, designed and titled in standards for the use of disposal sewage sludge. Federal and state regulations require reductions in pathogens and the potential to spread disease. Okay. North Carolina in 2018, they measured 129,000 dry metric tons were disposed of in the state of biosolids. A large majority of that being land application, that's 54%. Okay, just so you know, we have over 3,000 fields in the state, which include over 57,000 acres across North Carolina. So a lot is land applied. You have 21% that is incinerated. Then we have biosolids used for distribution, bulk distribution, or composted, 16%. And then we have some that are just landfilled. Okay, and as you know, DWM is doing a separate study assessing groundwater around sanitary landfills to understand PFAS impacts to off-site receptors. Okay. And then the other, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but there's another other where it's 1%. Okay. Much is sold to the public as a soil amendment too, and then we have just managed as waste. Okay. All right, so for this study, we had 3 main different types of facilities that we went to sample. We went to sample their influent, their effluent, and their biosolids. Okay, and then we sampled some soil fields that I'll present a little bit later. So what type of facilities did we go look at? We looked at 100% domestic, 3 of those. And that means they really only receive domestic wastewater, no industrial water. There might be some commercial discharges. We looked at 8 industrial wastewater treatment plants. So what we're looking at there is primarily processed wastewater from the industrial facilities. And then we went to 26 municipal wastewater treatment plants that can receive wastewater from significant industrial users, commercial, and residential sources. Okay. It should be noted that we did certainly pick municipalities that we knew had some significant industrial users that likely had PFAS and or received landfill leachate. We also picked some very large municipal wastewater treatment plants. So I don't want to say that this is worst case, but it certainly might have been skewed towards those that had PFAS coming to their plant.
Question real quick, I don't know if
Sure.
we talked about it before, but again, 36%, that's, you look at the graph, that's a third is domestic. You only did 3 domestic, but we talked about what is domestic in this study? What are they, schools? What are those domestics? There are only 3 of them, so.
I think, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we went to any schools. We just went to municipalities that didn't have any SIUs. Okay.
Okay.
So, and we call that generally 100% domestic.
And I'd just be curious to
Yeah.
see what those were, as I asked
Yeah.
before, so. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. And the number of individual MPDS wastewater permits in the state, we have it broken down. Those numbers in the chart are the number of permits in those groupings. So we do have 377, 100% domestic. That is our largest group, and they're usually expedited simple permits for schools and things like that. So we didn't go to a school, but we went to ones that were just 100%.
And y'all said schools when I was talking to you about it, and I said
Yeah.
PUDs or some kind of big urban communities or an aqua or somebody.
Right,
And
exactly.
it never was clear what that domestic
Yeah.
means versus the 3 you sampled.
Yeah.
Because y'all did say schools to me at one point.
I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
All right.
Okay. And so you can see how it's broken down just for our NPDS permits. So here we're looking at some results. This is the influent PFAS data summary. We broke it into 3 groupings: PFOS, PFOA, and total PFAS. The 3 groups are showing that the range, so 100% domestic for PFOS, we had a range of 4 to 14 with a mean of 9 parts per trillion. Okay, we're talking nanograms per liter. Municipalities had a range of 3 to 38, with 16 being the mean. And industrial wastewater treatment plants had a range from 3 to 121 with a mean of 55. Okay. When I say influent for industrial, we measured not the raw water intake, but that going into the wastewater treatment plant at that industry. Okay. Our observations were that 88% of the influent samples were greater than 4 for PFOA or PFOS. Okay. Domestic wastewater treatment plants had consistently lower PFAS entering the plant than the industrial and municipal. Municipal and industrial wastewater treatment plants had similar incoming mean total PFAS concentrations. Municipalities had the greatest variance, might because they just receive a lot of different industrial waste, different types. And the municipal influent included discharges from some industries that potentially had PFAS. Okay. When we say total PFAS, what that calculation includes is the summed of 56 PFAS that could be quantified in that discharge. And when you start comparing these to other states, do realize a lot of our states use test method 1633, so you could only quantify at the most 40 analytes, and we are started with 56. So just be aware of that. Sorry, Chair.
You made my point. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you make that point again? I'm sorry.
Since we use test method 537.1, that has 56 analytes in it. And so if you're going to quantify, there's only so many that show up as detects. And so total PFAS is the sum of those that could be quantified. I've noticed when you start comparing our data to other states, most of the other states use test method 1633, which only has 40 analytes. The most they could quantify would be 40.
And 1633 for council is, when we've talked about PFAS in the future, that would be the standard, not 537 or other methods. So again, it's relative to some other PFAS discussion we'll get into, because there are some industries or municipalities or people that do wastewater that would like to look at their historical outflow. And sometimes their methods are actually 537 that we used here, but we kind of say, should they use 1633 or could they use 537? And it gets to be kind of a, you got to be consistent, and we'll have those conversations, I'm sure, at different times as we get more to quantification. But 1633 is the one that's talked about as the standard going forward. So,
Real quick, you had a slide saying how many facilities you sampled. How many samples did you take at each facility?
So at most of the municipalities, we went there twice and we averaged their data. Okay. All right, and this is the effluent. Okay, so for the effluent, again, we have it broken down the same way. Domestic, you're seeing 3 to 16 with 10 being the mean, municipal 2 to 39, 13 being the mean, and industrial 2 to 86 with 36 being the mean. Why do I keep focusing on PFOS? Because by far it was the dominant PFAS in the samples, and that is commonly found in other states as well. Sure. Our observations were 90% of the effluent samples were greater than 4 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS. And the 3 domestic wastewater treatment plants had consistently lower PFAS leaving the plant. PFOA and PFOS concentrations in the industrial discharges were the highest, and the mean total PFAS effluent concentrations at all wastewater treatment plant types were greater than the influent concentrations. Why is that? That's not uncommon. Usually there's some sort of transformations happening, maybe some precursors coming out. We've seen that, and we see it quite often, I should say. Okay.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, I just wanted to point out again that these data show that existing wastewater treatment processes are not removing these compounds. And also that municipal and industrial discharges are dumping significant loads of PFAS into our water supplies, and yet we still haven't agreed on water quality standards or a way to control these.
Thank you. And we will, I have some more of those points to make when we get to the end of this presentation. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. This is kind of the same data. This is for biosolids now, okay? But it's in a little different format. Things to note. So we broke it down between the domestic, the industrial, and the municipal. We are now in nanograms per gram. That is parts per billion, not parts per trillion. So there are 1,000 parts per trillion in a part per billion. And so with the effluent slides, we're all in parts per trillion. We're now moving to parts per billion or nanograms per gram. The y-axis on the first two is much smaller. It goes from 0 up to 200. And then for total PFAS, it goes up higher. Okay. The first grouping is domestic, and then industrial, and then municipal in the purple. Note that the high number on top is the max. The line in the middle is the mean, and the number below it is the mean number. The dots on the graph, because I wanted you to see, are the data points. Now, if you go start counting them, trying to match with my numbers, they're not going to match. And the reason is because there were non-detects and they're not on there. Okay. But the important thing it does show you, if you look at PFOS in the middle, you can see you have a mean at 90, but you could see it was really, there were two elevated ones. I don't want to say this is good or bad. We just had industries that had some PFAS and they were elevated. And so you can see that mean falls there, because it's kind of interesting to see, even when you look at the total PFAS and you look at the municipal, there's a lot of them below the mean. And then there's some that really pull that chart, the bar chart way up. So if I just showed you the bar chart without those dots, it's not as evident as to kind of how widespread the samples were.
First of all, glad you added this. We talked about some of this, and I'm glad you added it from a statistics standpoint. I would still make the point from a statistics standpoint, which is what I do. Small data sets that are skewed, we need to see the median as well, the 50-50. And I think if you looked at, say, that far one on the right, total PFAS in municipal, you've got several that are pulling the average way up. You probably look at the industrial in the middle, and if you looked at the median, the 50-50 would be much lower. And I think you would see much of these kind of in the same range where the average is really pulled high up on a data set. And the pink one in the middle is a good example, and the one on the far right. Clearly those outliers out there are really pulling your average way up where the median would be way down, I think. So just a point from what I do for a living and trying to draw conclusions from small data sets. So
Yeah, and it's hard, though. I will say, compared to other states' data sets, this is kind of data rich, which seems incredible. I understand, because this is really quite limited. We're hoping to compare it to a lot of facilities are collecting their own data now, and we do hope to start comparing it. And I should also note, some of the elevated levels, we did contact those permittees and just let them know that, you know, they were kind of at the top of the bar, so they would know. And some of them have taken action and worked with their SIUs. So we do see some of that already happening. All right. So I did want to give the opportunity to compare it a little bit to other states. Pretty much our profile of PFAS compounds found in North Carolina is consistent with other states. You can see here now Michigan is at the top. And Michigan had a range of 3 to 2,150 parts per billion. After they implemented their best management practices, and did their program for several years, number of years, their averages went down to less than 100 parts per billion. So that's really great news. So you can compare, but compared to the US average of 0.4 to 999 parts per billion, we're right in there. You can see it's a wide range. What is happening in other states? Well, several states have thresholds for PFOA and PFOS for land application of biosolids. And when I say that, what do I mean? They say if it's greater than 100 parts per billion, they might recommend that they do not land apply it. If it's less than 20, then they recommend they can do, there's no problem at all, apply it at their agronomic rate. If it's in between, they do have some restrictions then, and they do try and reduce the application rates. Okay. Other states, 11 states, have monitoring requirements. They're just learning about biosolids like the rest of us and what PFAS is in them. So recently, Tennessee modified their general permit that includes that all Class B biosolids be monitored for PFAS within 90 days and then annually thereafter. So what did we learn? Okay, we learned a little bit. PFAS enters a wastewater treatment plant from other facilities. It does. Most municipalities do not create PFAS. And then it's discharged to the effluent and, or can leave as biosolids. In the 100% domestic, now these are just our small subs, our grouping, this is from our grouping, okay, and our small subset. We see that 2% leaves as biosolids and 98% leaves as effluent. 87% for industrial leaves as effluent, 13% is biosolids. In the municipalities, we saw 90% leave of effluent and 10% leave at, in biosolids. Okay. Okay. All right, so now I'll do the soils. So we did go to 19 land application fields. Okay. Those are broken down between 12 municipal application fields, 3 industrial application fields, and 4 were mixed application fields, meaning they could receive waste from 20 to 30 different types of facilities. We did go to 1 compost facility. They also received waste from over 65 different facilities. So you can see these biosolids are being mixed with a variety of facility of biosolids. And the composting, I just wanted to give you some data from that. And we still saw PFOS 11.8 to 16.4 parts per billion and PFOA. And that was after it was mixed with wood chips. Okay. The soil samples we collected from the fields, the majority of those fields were simply used to grow crop cover, not for human consumption. However, some of them did have where animals do consume it. Okay. PFOS was detected in everything, domestic, municipal, mixed, and the composting. Okay. Show you some of the soil results. Again, it's the same type of a graph as the biosolids. Again, we are in parts per billion or nanograms per gram. At the top number is showing the max. The line in the middle is the mean, and the number below it is the mean. So you can see the PFOA was pretty steady and all the groups. In the PFOS, you can see that the municipality had the highest mean and the highest max, probably because of might be because of variety of the SIUs discharging to it. Okay, and total PFAS too. You can see the highest was in the municipalities. But again, that's why I included the data points, because look, majority of them below the mean, with just really quite one outlier.
Question?
Sure.
Sorry. The land application for crops that are given to animals, do we know if there's been testing of the hay and the products from those fields for PFAS?
That is not in our purview.
Yeah.
There has been some, but I don't know that there has been specifically at the fields that we went to.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry, the dedicated sites.
Yeah. I don't. I'm sorry, that's why I have a slide for it.
Commissioner Yarborough, speak in the mic if you will.
There were dedicated sites.
Oh.
You didn't mention that yet.
Well, so I looked into that, Commissioner Yarborough, and they're not 100% all dedicated. Okay.
Tell us what dedicated is.
So, boy, and Nathaniel, I might need you. Dedicated is when they're specifically going to that site for the particular biosolids, and they've gotten, and it's for biosolids, and they're just, I'm not sure I'm 100% on this definition. Because then we get into Class A and Class B too, and that gets.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nathaniel Thornburg. I'm the supervisor of the non-discharge branch that handles the permitting for Class A and Class B residuals. Regarding dedicated sites, those are land application fields where residuals may be applied at a rate greater than the agronomic rate. So that's what a dedicated field is you're applying more nutrients than what the crop can uptake. And typically on those sites, we have groundwater monitoring wells to look to make sure that there's not nutrient contamination in the groundwater.
Thank you. You
You're
might want to
welcome.
stay around.
Julie?
Yeah.
Quick
Commissioner,
question,
yeah.
just to go back to the compost, you mentioned that was with the wood chips. Was that finished compost that was biosolids composted with wood chips?
My understanding it was, but I would prefer to look into it and confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions on this side before I move on? All right, so our basic conclusions
Yes.
were that PFOS was detected in biosolids. Okay, PFOS concentrations were consistent with other states, and 2 to 13% of total PFAS leaving industrial and municipal plants ended up in biosolids.
Can I ask you a question there? Because I do think that's a different number than I see nationally. So maybe future comment whether that's a normal number or not. We can do it later. I'm not trying to throttle you now, but you've said that a couple times. I just want to make sure with a small data set, we don't see more in the solid form than what you're indicating there. So.
Right, I understand. And in soils, the PFOS was present in soils after repeated biosolids applications. What ends up in the surface water, we saw 87 to 98% of the total PFAS leaving wastewater treatment plants are discharged to surface water. We did that calculation based on mass. Facility types, PFAS were detected in all sampled facilities across all sample types. Majority of the sites had influent and effluent detections above 4 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS, and domestic influent and effluent PFAS concentrations were consistently lower than municipal and industrial wastewaters. I will say this, in looking at these results, this speaks highly for some sort of PFAS monitoring and minimization rules, since it would potentially reduce what is going to these wastewater treatment plants and what could be in the biosolids or in the effluent. So implementing best management practices could reduce or eliminate the discharge of PFAS from industrial facilities that use or have previously used these chemicals. And then the questions always come up, what to do next? What do we do? It's a tough question, Commissioner Yarborough. I know you asked that. And at this point, we do have several communities and residual permittees who have contacted us and are trying to work with us, looking at their application fields. They're most concerned that if there is any sort of human health concern with a drinking water well, whatever, that they want to know if it's from the field or if it's from some other an industrial facility or a landfill nearby. And so we are working with a few communities to delve into this, to take a look at what is really the fate and transport of PFAS in biosolids. And that's all I have. Thank you.
So I think that was a solid presentation. I think it gives us some really high level things. I think we got to partition off with it is small data sampling. I don't know if all the test methods were right, but for what it was tended to do as far as the screening, it informs us that especially PFAS is out there. And it's kind of ubiquitous, right? That's what we always hear. And this study kind of confirms that with some other national numbers. I do think we've got to look at the data set compared to nationally and all that stuff to make sure things are consistent. And I would like to see this in a report, Julie, just because I've seen the other states. They do more than a slideshow, and slides tend to change, but a base report would be great where we talked about the sample. I don't think you ever showed in there 537.1 was the sampling method. I know you added that, and we're very clear in the verbal, but things like that are very informative to talk about. I would like to see a little discussion on median versus mean. I know a lot of people report mean, but these are small data sets. And just that percent liquid and solid would be good. But again, I think that it does show that there's a lot of potential stuff coming into the wastewater plants, and the wastewater plants aren't necessarily generating it themselves. So a lot of takeaways here. So thank you for the report, and we'll take questions now. Commissioner, do you have a question, or are you hitting your hair?
Yes, yeah, just I wanted clarification. Is the reason you chose the test method so you could capture the Chemours?
Signature compounds,
Signature
yes.
compounds, okay. And for the dedicated
Gotcha.
sites, agricultural or biosolid sites,
Mhm.
you all monitor groundwater for nutrients, do you also monitor for PFAS compounds?
We do not have any historical monitoring for PFAS compounds. Okay, it may be something we have to look at. I also do want to say, when we went to this, to test the fields, thank goodness we have the soil scientists, we had to develop the test method we were going to use. There isn't something out there. And we actually did a composite of 6 different points. And she really defined exactly how we follow a procedure and how we decide on those 6 different places. So it's very investigative, but when I say exploratory, I do mean it.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's very important work.
Mr. Gibson.
Yeah, I think one of the main findings is there's a fair amount of PFAS in municipal treatment systems, and your sample size there was not small. 26 is a pretty good sample size for computing summary statistics, and it's about 10% of the municipal plants. So I agree a little bit more is needed there, but I'd also like to point out, I'm right now on a National Academy of Sciences committee that's looking at PFAS and biosolids, and we've looked at some data on levels of PFAS in background soils compared to its sites where biosolids are applied. And certainly the levels that are observed here in your study of sites where municipal biosolids have been applied are higher than at background sites. So there is definitely an impact that's occurring.
Well, if I could see that data, it would be great.
The report should be released fairly soon. It's just kind of finishing up through the peer review process right now. So I expect it'll be released early in the year.
That's excellent, because one of the questions that we got asked immediately was, did we go to where it was a background type site where we could collect soil? And we did not. Not that I know where to go exactly in the state to find that, but something to consider.
Yes, Mr. Jespers.
I have a question, just a clarification on the land application fields that you mentioned here, only soil collected from fields used to grow crop cover, not for human consumption. Are there going to be sites or sampling where it is for human consumption, like, where things are grown that we eat?
I don't think any of our biosolids are for human consumption.
Okay.
Yeah. I think most of us know this too. State of design, the design standards, I think Julie said that at the federal or the state level, they're not designed, these ag fields application for PFAS or other chemicals. They're really in there for pathogens and for nutrients and things like that. So it does demand, if people have performed this and applied it to the land like they should have done it for years, they were going by a standard. There's a standard robust enough for PFAS. That's on the table, because I don't think it's necessarily as Nathaniel mentioned, it's not been an intentional thing of overloading. They have to be permitted if they overload the ag rate. So I think there's a lot to think about when you talk about the layers, especially when, again, what we can't miss, and I think Maryland had the same kind of study done, 50 to 60% of our biosolids are land applied, and we've restricted incineration so much, and we don't have enough landfill capacity. The question a lot of times is one thing to say, what do we do about them? Get them off the land, but then where do you put them? So then that brings us back to how do we design them better on the land if we're going to have to land apply them. But we're not going to stop the biosolids from coming. It's how do we deal with it? And there's only 3 ways: land application, incineration, and landfilling. And we really have to balance that. So that's what some other states are struggling with as well. Mr. Bumgarner.
Maybe our resident agronomist can speak to this, but there's not a direct corollary between PFAS being in the biosolid on the ground and then plant uptake too. Maybe there is.
That's not true. There is, absolutely. And even if I could say, in Maine, there were some dairy farms that had to be shut down because cattle were grazing on forage that was contaminated with PFAS from biosolids.
So was it the forage or the
It was the
cattle?
forage.
Getting in the soil.
The forage.
Okay. But again, a good report to start some of these conversations for what it started. I think it started this in 2023. And
Yeah.
the data's
And
mainly
we
for
have a
2023
report.
and
We need to fine tune it, but we can do that.
Yeah, I think that gets into the sampling methodologies and the background and the things that most of us that do this for a living or around it would want to see. So, but thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes.
Just wanted to, follow up, because in looking at what concentrations you're finding in biosolids, it does call into question, how do you optimize operations for drinking water treatment plants, wastewater municipal treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants? And so that you are able to capture these or deal with these before they get into a biosolid. And I don't know, does DEQ have any considerations? Have there been any thoughts from the commission on looking at optimizing treatment plant operations?
Yeah, but I think where we came out when we looked at this as a commission, because we did the benefit cost analysis and we had the big debate, it really didn't pencil out the way that was done. But if we're, and again, I'll be graphic, but if we're trying to treat it in our pee and our poop, that may be that's the back end. That's not the cause. That's the symptoms. The real place, and I think where the commission has started moving before we get to numeric standards, is let's cut it down at the source.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Julie mentioned
Absolutely.
that. So we don't want to consume it. We know only about, for instance, the numbers we used to have was about 20% of our PFAS exposure was from drinking water. The rest was from makeup, from food, from clothes, from kids on carpet. That's a much harder question, but we got to start attacking it at the source, because once it gets to the bottom end, it's already in our communities, and it's much more exponentially more expensive to treat and get out than if we nailed it at the source. So I think the direction we're trying to go in now is to, as we get those numeric standards in place and can get agreement on them, we need to start knocking this down at the source as much as possible. And that's why.
Yeah, no, I would agree. However, we're still, because it is so ubiquitous, we are still in this reactive mode as well. And so, we've got to look at it holistically. And the other point I was going to make is looking at incineration, because there's been a lot of interest in looking at incineration effectiveness of PFAS, whether, what the evaluation's been of what's being incinerated. Are they in fact successful in breaking up these compounds? And if not, if you're getting into the air shed, where's it going and what's its deposition? And
It's a good question, and I know DAQ has been looking into that. They've been thinking it's-
Okay, question? Anybody else? Okay, if not, thank you, Julie, and we'll look forward to as you finalize and present this out to other people. And I know once you start putting people's names with it, you'll start getting some reactions. So may the force be with you on that, I guess. All right, at this point, I think we have finished our main agenda. I just want to make sure I've got so much writing here, scribbling here. Is that right, Counselor, Vice Chair? So we will go to Director's reports, and I don't see Toby sitting there, but we have lunch coming at 11:30, so we'll try to do this and the Commissioner Roundtable before we go to eat lunch. So Toby, what do we have from Denver today? I know it's not Toby.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, I'm not Toby Vincent. I'm Adam Parr, Deputy Director of Delmar. Toby is over at the Convention Center today, meeting with some dam safety officials, because next September we will be hosting the National ASDSO Conference here in Raleigh. To continue with dam safety updates, the dam safety program has finished meeting with the stakeholder group, going over the rules in the 15A NCAC 02K. And they are currently going through their regulatory impact analysis and developing that, getting it ready to get approval from OSBM prior to January 2026. And then they'll bring that back to the Water Quality Committee for the March 2026 meeting, and the full EMC for May 2026. Right now, that process is on schedule. Dam safety program has also moved forward with providing guidelines and the application for the dam safety grant fund. That's for applicants to provide to if they've had damage from Hurricane Helene. It was $10 million that was provided by the General Assembly. We'll be accepting applications through December 12th of this year, and then reviewing those applications through March of 2026 before deciding which applicants will receive those funds. The stormwater section has been working with IT to develop our Access DEQ permit transformation project solution. And that's moving the permits from BIMS and Laserfish document management system for the post-construction stormwater solution. They're also working in combining the NPDES general construction stormwater permit application along with the sediment erosion control application that's online. So it'll be a combined form for the sediment erosion control and construction stormwater, as well as post-construction stormwater, going live very soon. They're currently working through internal user testing, and we expect to have something available for the public sometime later this fall. Right now, the stormwater select section for its rule review is working through its O2B and O2H rules under the rulemaking group A. And I'm aware that Mr. Mike Lawyer was here yesterday with the Water Quality Committee, and he's working on the regulatory impact analysis, and will provide that to the commission before sending it over to OSBM. And they are on schedule as well.
A question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Says you'll be providing the RIA draft to the commission or to Water Quality Committee?
To what was the request yesterday? It was to the Water Quality Committee.
You said commission.
Back to the committee.
Committee, yes,
Yeah,
to the committee.
sorry.
That's fine. Yes.
Thank you.
Question?
Oh, you did a good
We
job
just-
filling in for Toby. You did.
Yeah,
so.
and we discussed that as well to go to all the committee members. Thank you.
That's a big ask too, by the way. I'm just picking. Any questions for Demler before he gets too far away? All right, here and then we'll go to Michael Scott with Waste Management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'll be brief. Got a few items in the director's comments, but I'll just touch on a couple. Really appreciate our staff and coordination across the greater DEQ and Department of Ag. As we've let the commission know, we received a $61 million EPA grant related to Hurricane Helene. Got that in late September before the October 1st anticipated date. And a lot of work already underway on that front we're really excited about. We've already put out contracts for brownfield contractors to assess impacted properties in Western North Carolina, perform remediation, and even conduct some demolition work in the west, which is really exciting. Department of Ag's already out of the gate really fast with some pesticide collection events underway. There was $4 million that passed through from DEQ to NCDA on this front for greater Helene work related to pesticides collection. And we're also moving forward with the Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service with recycling infrastructure grants. So really excited about that opportunity and really appreciate all the great work on that particular front. Also related to Helene, we continue to move forward with our brand new UST underground storage tank bridge loan program. So it's the first time we've ever been in the loan business. The General Assembly dedicated funds for Western North Carolina impacted gas station owner and operators. And as a division, we're implementing that loan fund, which is a zero interest loan to these small businesses to get themselves back up and running, whether it's piping infrastructure, dispensers, whatever needs to be done to get them back in operation. So we're really excited about the progress with that program. Special thanks to Bridget and Jessica. Richard and Water Resources may mention this one, but we're excited for the PFAS groundwater standards, PFOA, PFOS, and Gen X. We're finalized, made it through the Rules Review Commission as of November the 1st. So we are screening sites across the state for those 3 groundwater standards, and we'll keep the commission briefed on that. Going from the mountains to the coast, we've got several programs working on Buxton, the formal naval station. I know that oceanfront structures and interest in greater waste management work on that front was mentioned yesterday, so we'll try to include that in a briefing in 2026. But we continue to work with the Army Corps on assessing petroleum impacts at the Buxton formal naval facility. The Coast Guard also operated at that location where we've had petroleum sheens, petroleum in the Atlantic, and also great amounts of infrastructure that the Army Corps is working to remove now. Right next to where a lot of the homes you've been reading about have also unfortunately fell into the ocean. So I'll keep it at that for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions for Director Scott? Yes, Commissioner Bailey.
Back to the Buxton issue, what I've been reading is that the jetties that have been mentioned a lot in the news are deteriorating, but I understand they were there because of the former naval military operations there. Is that any, I know that would be a CAMA kind of permitting process, but how does that impact the way the erosion is going with the sand and the contaminated area? Is it a Superfund site?
It's under our Superfund program,
Yeah,
correct?
so
Yeah.
how is that erosion affecting that Superfund site?
Yeah, I'll leave maybe up to Tancred and our colleagues in coastal management to address the jetties issue. I'm aware of the subject you're referring to. It's a highly erosive area, so the Army Corps and their consultants work to assess these petroleum impacts. One day, they're looking at infrastructure. The next day, literally 30 inches of sand is deposited on top of what they were just working on. So it's quite a dynamic environment. I understand the jetty piece and how it's, impacted that particular area. But like I said, I'll let coastal management weigh in on the future of the jetties and their ongoing impacts.
But it is affecting the cleanup and evaluation efforts, right? The
Well,
erosion.
affecting it through, it's a highly erosive environment. So you put equipment in an area, you dig out an area, and then sand is redeposited in that area. So it's a huge effort in a very dynamic environment. Commend the National Park Service. They really have deployed a lot of great staff helping with this assessment and remedial work, but there's a lot more to do. That site was used for a long time by the Navy and the Coast Guard. It is Park Service property, and we're just all trying to find the collaborative path forward to keep the petroleum out of the environment.
Thank you, Director Scott. Director Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commission members. Aren't we glad the federal government has reopened? It provides us the opportunity to quit looking in the couches for coinage to keep those 189 federal positions we have on board. So we're excited about that. You don't know how much it relieves our staff as well, because it does provide pressure and is undue pressure on staff trying to make sure that they can provide for themselves and their families. Another staffing issue, Joey, you mentioned you found out earlier he is leaving us, a valued employee. And I just want to thank him for his efforts. But as you well know, on the High Rock Lake, he was our man. So we will have to transition to that and work through those issues. But Joey, we appreciate your work and that as well. So other staff, as always, our staff do an excellent job. Continue to work hard as we move forward. In my director's comments, I have Helene updates. I will note that on some of these, you'll notice I got status and change. That just means since our last report, the previous commission member at the previous in September. I do want to point out another issue, one other point on Helene recovery, the private roads and private bridges efforts that's going on. We are continue to work with EMS on that and are working with the Corps closely to make sure that process goes through seamlessly as well. I think we have 300 to 400 projects that they have approved, and they'll be working through our 401 certification process, and we're ready and prepared to expedite all those that need to be expedited. Public hearings is another aspect. We have November 5th hearing that we had on our zero flow. We appreciate Commissioner Keene being there and facilitating that. So that is completed. I'll be working on the hearing officer report. We'll bring that back to you. We also have scheduled 3 different hearings on IBT for Fuquay, which is upcoming as well. Other area that we're focused on, pipelines, 401 certification for pipelines. If you recall, we had 3 of those applications in. The T15 pipeline, we approved right after the last EMC meeting, I think on September 16th. Yesterday, we approved the MVP pipeline, which is about a 5-mile segment in north central North Carolina. That was approved and sent out last evening, and we continue to work on the Transco permit as well. Our deadline on that currently is December 19th. I also provide public notices that we do for our MPDS program, just to give y'all a flavor of all the activities that are going on around our reissuance of permits. So hopefully y'all will look through that. We're all across the state and doing a whole lot of work there. And I always please pay attention to our drought report. It's funny how those things change from meeting to meeting. And I think we were in really good shape last time we met, and maybe today not so great. So that's my comments. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Questions for Director Rogers?
Thank you.
Good report. Director Ambrosescus.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. So first update today, the 2025 ozone season concluded on October 31st. And for only the second time, North Carolina had no monitor record an exceedance of the 8-hour National Ambient Air Quality Standard for ozone. To distinguish for a minute the difference between an exceedance and a violation of these standards, a violation is determined by the form of the standard, and the form of standard for ozone is the fourth highest value, 8-hour daily maximum value at each monitoring site, averaged over 3 years. If you're over the level of standard with that metric, that's a violation. We haven't had a violation of the ozone standard or any standard for over 10 years. An exceedance is just one individual day where you've exceeded that value. And so that's what I'm noting here, is in 2025, we had no exceedances of the 8-hour ozone standard. Our initial analysis suggests that the two main factors, in addition to continued emissions reductions that resulted in such a clean ozone season, the first was significantly less wildfire smoke over the area throughout the summer compared to the past couple of years. And the second was a lack of favorable high ozone atmospheric conditions, which included record high humidity levels in July and unusually cool August temperatures. There are some images in my written remarks that kind of compare the atmospheric patterns when we have had high ozone days in the past and what it looked like this year. And you can take a look at that in the remarks. This is the only other year that we had no ozone exceedances. The only other year that we had no ozone exceedances was 2020, and that was a year where mobile source emissions were significantly lower for a portion of the ozone season due to the pandemic. All right, next item is a follow-up on our remarks from the September meeting of the commission, where our division submitted comments on EPA's proposed repeal of the greenhouse gas vehicle emission standards. The primary focus of DAQ's comment letter was to present the division's analysis of potential impacts on criteria pollutant emissions. This is an area that EPA did not evaluate in its proposal. So while EPA states in their proposal that it does not alter the existing criteria pollutant standards, the agency acknowledged in their preamble here that the possibility exists that the proposal could marginally impact emissions of criteria emissions and toxic air toxic emissions. Furthermore, EPA asserted that it does not currently believe that the proposed action would have any material adverse impact on the health of individuals with respect to non-GHG air pollutants, including on children, because the EPA anticipates that the impacts of repealing GHG emission regulations would have only marginal and incidental impacts on the emission of non-GHG emissions. However, these statements in the preamble were made without providing any supporting quantification or analysis of the potential criteria pollutant impacts. So as a little background, our division conducts mobile source emissions modeling on a routine basis and has a unique understanding of the direct and indirect air pollution benefits of different federal regulatory programs. This understanding led us to look for quantitative assessment data in EPA's proposed repeal here. When we didn't find any, our staff embarked on a complex technical analysis similar to what was done or is done in different state implementation plans that we produce. So to assess the potential criteria pollutant impacts for North Carolina, DAQ staff conducted an emissions modeling analysis using EPA's latest on-road vehicle emissions models. This analysis focused on the years 2035 and 2050. And was limited to Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, which was selected due to its narrow attainment margins for both ozone
and fine particulates. Both the annual emissions increases in tons per year and the percentages in NOx, PM 2.5, VOCs, and SO2 from our analysis is shown in a graphic in my written remarks, but I'll just highlight some of those numerical values for you briefly. So our analysis, again, for annual increases in on-road mobile NOx from this proposal for 2035 in Mecklenburg County is about 250 tons per year, or an 11% increase in on-road mobile NOx. And by 2050, it would be about a 450 ton per year NOx increase, or a 35% increase in on-road mobile NOx in 2050. For PM 2.5, a 7% increase by 2035 and a 17% increase by 2050. And for VOCs, about a 200 ton increase, 200 ton per year increase in VOCs by 2035, which is a 9% increase, and a 450 ton per year increase in VOCs by 2050, which is a 28% increase. These findings raise concerns for areas with limited compliance margins like the Charlotte area, as even marginal increases in mobile source emissions could jeopardize future transportation projects in maintenance areas subject to transportation conformity requirements. And these challenges could hinder the state's ability to maintain compliance with the health-based national ambient air quality standards while supporting economic development. So in light of these concerns, DAQ urged EPA to withdraw the proposed repeal and recommended a collaborative approach with states and stakeholders to develop strategies that protect public health, promote economic growth, and ensure continued competitiveness for North Carolina and the nation. There's a link to the full comment letter in my written remarks. That's all for today. Thank you.
Just a question. I'm gonna spin it positive because it glared at me yesterday and I didn't brought it up today. When you went through the EPA changes, one of those changes was the endangerment clause. The EPA was looking at, which mainly affects some of the things you're talking about. You said there would be no rules. The slide said no rules would be in fact if EPA took that away. So talk a little bit about your letter and sense of compliance versus if EPA does away with an endangerment. Your slide yesterday, maybe it needs to be corrected, said there would be no rules that would be affected that would come before this commission if EPA did away with it. Is that accurate, or is that?
Yes, sir, that is accurate. Yes, sir. So that is absolutely right. So if the proposed repeal of the GHG endangerment finding and the proposed repeal of the GHG vehicle emission standards are finalized as proposed, it would not require any rulemaking action follow-up on the EMC's part because we don't have any rules on the state rule books that are related to this. Really, this is focused on something that is where authority is retained at the federal level, and that is to manage and regulate vehicle emission standards or vehicle and engine standards or fuel economy standards even. So that's something that's retained with both EPA and the National Highway Transit Safety Administration. NHTSA implements and enforces CAFE standards, corporate average fuel economy standards. So you are correct. The slide yesterday was correct. No changes or impacts to EMC or state rules.
That it would have an impact on the federal rules and change.
It impact emissions in North Carolina. So the change in, that's our kind of our point in the comment letter was to kind of illustrate to EPA that you didn't analyze this, but we did. And it shows impacts to non-GHG air pollutants that we're concerned about. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the Director Representative?
Just a question. That sounds like really important work that you all did to respond to the EPA. I'm wondering if you've shared those results with North Carolina DHHS relevant programs.
We have not had a chance to sit down with the DHHS on this yet, but I'll certainly be glad to do that. We regularly meet with them. So
great.
Yeah, I'll be sure to do that.
Any other questions for Director Representatives? Okay, thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you.
All the directors for putting your comments together. I think, again, I say it over and over, but it's a tremendous value to, I think, the general public to have those posted on the EMC website. And you guys being as concise and direct as possible, they are very, very good updates for the public. And I think for the EMC as a whole, to have you both explain some of it to us, but also give it to us on the website. So thank you very much for that. I'm gonna kind of reverse the order before we go around the horseshoe because there are a couple things that may come up in comments, and I wanted to let council talk about three of them, and I'll talk about one of them off the bat, but let's go to council report first.
Thank you, Chair Solomon. A few legal updates for everyone that have occurred since the September meeting. First is that the Court of Appeals came down with a decision in Cooper v. Berger, or what I believe is now Stein v. Berger, which was looking at Senate Bill 512, which was the recomposition of the EMC. That bill changed two of the governor's appointee seats to appointments by the Commissioner of Agriculture. That bill and the challenge to it, the challenge to it was, the court found that it was a constitutional recomposition of the EMC and affirmed the distribution as the EMC is currently comprised. The next, unless you have, the next litigation update is that the Supreme Court, the North Carolina Supreme Court issued a decision in North Carolina Farm Bureau versus DWR, Division of Water Resources. And just to back up a bit, because we haven't seen this area recently, you all have authority to permit animal waste management systems. You have delegated that authority to DEQ, and DWR runs that program. General permits, there are individual permits under that program and general permits. General permits are required to be renewed every 5 years. The last renewal occurred in 2019. The Farm Bureau challenged that general permit, specifically 3 conditions in that general permit, saying that those conditions were rules and should have been adopted under the procedures of the Administrative Procedures Act. Because they were not, the Farm Bureau argued that those conditions in the general permit were invalid. That challenge was initially heard in the Office of Administrative Hearings, and an administrative law judge agreed with Farm Bureau, finding that those conditions were not valid. The case made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided that animal waste management system general permits do impose generally applicable regulations, which the court said are in fact rules, and in order for them to be valid, they need to go through the APA's rulemaking process. The court heavily relied on General Statute 143-215.10c, in which it says that the General Assembly's intent is that most animal waste management general permit, or that most animal waste management systems be permitted under general permits, not individual permits. Because of that language, the court said that those general permits are in fact generally applicable regulations and therefore rules under the APA. The court declined to extend the holding of its case to say that all conditions in all permits, including individual permits, are required to go through the rulemaking process. The big takeaway from that case for your purposes is that this commission will need to do some rulemaking for general permits for animal waste management system operations. It's my understanding that the department is already working towards that. I know they've been in consultation with the Farm Bureau as well, and are moving forward with bringing you all a rule package at some point. But that is going to be the result of that opinion.
Probably somebody will try to expand it, no matter how narrow some people read it, other people read it very widely. So we may be looking at provisions in other general permits, depending on where that all goes over the next year or two, or just, it maybe see more rulemaking later. Maybe not, but maybe. Last one.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about that. So what are the implications for facilities that are covered by those existing general permits? So they no longer are meeting all of the criteria in the general permit. Or I guess they're not meeting all of the criteria as the permit was initially proposed. We're in this odd situation where they were permitted under a general permit that no longer exists in effect, in the form it was initially issued.
I see Dan Hirschman jumping up, and I will definitely let himself throw himself into this discussion. But I think it struck down those 3 conditions that were not done through rulemaking. The other conditions in the general permit generally are already in rule. They're just not in a specific section for animal waste management system general permits. So the 2019 permit minus those 3 conditions, I believe, are still applicable. And even though they're on a 5-year cycle, the legislature actually extended those general permits until September 2028 to give everyone time to revamp the general permits. But the general permits, less those 3 conditions that were found to be invalid, are still applicable to those operating under general permits. And if I missed anything or misstated anything, I'm happy to let Dan.
So with Ellie's interpretation, I just want to clarify that the only thing the court did was invalidate those 3 conditions. It did not speak to the other conditions in the general permit. It leaves open the question, what should be.
Come to the mic, please.
Sorry. It leaves open the question, what should be done with the other conditions in the permit? As Ellie pointed out, some of those are already incorporated in rule, but to the extent that there are some that it may not be, that is a question that we're looking at right now. And as Ellie mentioned, DEQ is working with stakeholders right now to figure out the best path forward to comply with the decision. And we will most certainly be back in front of you all with a proposal to address the decision and to comply with it.
And again, let's take one more. We'll do this at orientation, but let's get it,
Orientation?
Well, I want to.
You're a new member.
Some of the new commissioners may have this, but keep going with the discussion.
No, just one follow-up, which
Yeah,
is,
sure.
I think the interesting question here is general permits are developed to basically expedite permitting. And the deal we strike with the people covered by those general permits is that they agree to meet those conditions. And that frees them from having to go through the much more lengthy and time-consuming process of receiving an individual permit. Now, under the law, the individual permit is the default, whatever the legislature wants us to do. And I understand, we all use general permits and have for quite some time, but the fundamental permit that's required under statutes is an individual permit. And if you don't meet the general permit criteria, you default to an individual permit. And so my concern is we now have a situation where people or facilities did not go through an individual permitting review. They're also not meeting conditions that the department determined were necessary to protect the environment in their operations. And we're now in this gap between these 2 things.
You just hit 3 questions here, so which counselor and Commissioner Reardon, who wants to speak first?
I just got a question.
Well, wait a minute, just hold your question. I think they had a statement on that, about the
Okay.
general and individual permits.
I'll just say first that, again, with respect to this decision, and it focused on the statutory language that Ellie referenced. And in that statute, it said that most facilities would be permitted under the general permit. So it's a little different than the normal default that might be individual permit unless you apply for coverage. In this case, the court did not look at it that way. So that's point 1. Was there another question?
No, that's fine. Let's get Commissioner Reardon and Commissioner Yarburn, and I want to get out of the quagmire. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this can go deep. But the characterization that these facilities are not meeting the requirements of a permit when the additional requirements were added to the permit were found to be unlawful because it wasn't done through rulemaking. Is it the opinion of DEQ that these farms are not meeting? I would suggest that's an overstatement.
Absolutely would be.
Yeah, to say they're in violation.
That's not DEQ's position that they're in
Okay.
violation. I think there's questions about the other conditions, and we are working with stakeholders to come up with a solution to bring to you all to come into compliance with that. Maybe that's a temporary rule to put the current permit into effect
It's pretty simple.
until we can get to the next cycle. But no, DEQ does not view any of the current permit holders as being out of compliance with their
And
permits.
that actually was not my implication either. I don't think they're
You
they're
said
in
that.
violation. I said they are not meeting all of the criteria that were in the original general permit, which is true, they're not. But it's not a violation.
Okay, let Ellie clean this up, and then she's got one more to talk about, the statute, the law. I'm really trying to give you all the legal terrain, so if you hear these things come up and we start experiencing, you'll be aware of what's happening.
Perception.
So go ahead and finish this one up.
Yeah, so to your thought that the individual permit is the default, I think that's very statute dependent. This statute clearly says it is the intent of the General Assembly that most animal waste management systems be permitted under a general permit. So the default for these, I think, is the general permit, not the individual permit. But to Chair Solomon's point, it is going to be a case-by-case basis. We're going to need to look to see whether conditions in other general permits meet that definition of a rule and therefore need to go through the rulemaking process. To address what I think Commissioner Reardon and Commissioner Yarbrough were saying, those three conditions that DEQ determined were necessary in the permit, the court ruling doesn't say that those permits are invalid because they are wrong somehow. They're invalid because they didn't go through rulemaking procedure. If you all want to see those conditions as part of a rulemaking package for a general permit, you can certainly do that. DEQ can bring that forward. But again, the general permits, less those three conditions, are currently valid. Folks operating under those general permits and following the conditions therein, less those three conditions that were found to be invalid, are operating per the conditions of their permit.
Yes, okay. All
right.
And that was all just to tell you that you may be seeing more conditions and general permits and rules. So now you see how complicated this may get before it's over, right?
So we're becoming a commission of pee and poop. Is that it?
We already are.
We already are.
You started.
And air too, well, the air, they say air too. Okay, now here's another one that was in your packages in committee that we can, this is so new that we may need to talk about it in orientation more, because we're still getting opinions on this from the different legal folks. But the RAINS Act is here. So I just asked Ellie, it passed, and it will be the subject probably of some challenges. So just prepare us briefly on the RAINS Act.
Okay, so the RAINS Act was essentially an amendment to the rulemaking procedures under the Administrative Procedures Act. There are three major changes that it made. The first is that substantial economic impact has been redefined to mean an aggregate financial impact on all persons affected of at least $1 million in a 5-year period. It used to be $1 million in a 12-month period. Practically, what that means for you all is that you are going to see more fiscal notes as opposed to regulatory impact analyses. The difference between those two, the biggest difference, is that a fiscal note requires an alternatives analysis. So we picked this option. If we would have picked an option where we did nothing, this would have been the economic impact. If we would have picked an option where, we regulated the sun and moon and stars, it would have resulted in this impact. So more rules are going to fall into a category of a substantial economic impact under the RAINS Act. The second change that it made is that there are vote requirements now. Rules that have an aggregate financial cost of greater than $1 million in a 5-year period require a vote of at least 2/3 of commission members present and voting. Rules that have an aggregate financial cost of greater than $10 million during a 5-year period require a unanimous vote of commissioners present and voting. This is cost only, not cost and benefit. So aggregate financial impact includes cost and benefit. For the vote requirements, it's just the cost. The next major change is that any rule with an aggregate financial cost of at least $20 million in a 5-year period requires ratification by the General Assembly. So it will not go to the Rules Review Commission. It will go straight to the General Assembly to introduce a bill to approve the rule. If the General Assembly approves the rule, it goes into the code. If they do not introduce a bill specifically approving the rule, then the rule is returned to the commission and it does not go into the code. There is an exception to the vote requirement and the ratification requirement, which is if a rule is required by federal law or is necessary to maintain compliance with a federally delegated program. The vote requirement does not apply and the ratification requirement does not apply. That question, whether a rule or set of rules is federally required or really required to maintain compliance with a federally delegated program, is an area that we are still working on, and Chair Solomon indicated that there will likely be challenges or questions around that. And I think that's the area we're looking at.
And just, I think that was a good summary. And again, some of this is so fresh, we can't debate it because the law passed this summer. I think at a high level, it passed this summer. So look, guys, it's apt to change. This hadn't been around like the APA for 20 years and challenged. So this will be a new aspect. I don't think as a commission, it changes doing the right thing. Whatever we did think the right thing to be is, we just have to do it. We don't ever, even the current structure, we don't know when 10 letters are coming to the RRC and it's going to the General Assembly or not. We just need to do the right thing. So let me say that off the bat. But the challenges we may see is, when do you determine it? Who determines it? Who determines exactly what the federal program requirement is? So there's a lot of things that can't be answered right now that the AG's office will be working through with DEQ, I think, too, to work this out. So but you need to be aware of it. Just it should not affect our short-term decision making at all. But it is something there that I wanted to make sure y'all are aware through the Water Quality Committee, that it was just kind of sitting out there in this commission. We could talk about it more at orientation too, if you guys want to. But just, I don't think it changes the way we approach our basic business at all. But on the back end, it might. So, anything else on your end? Okay. The other thing statutorily, I mentioned this in the same email, we talked about the Supreme Court, the appeals court, and the legislative. The General Assembly did give the EMC $700,000 that they use on 5 full-time equivalents, and they listed 6 types of personnel we could have. It's a very specific dedication to us. I have met with the State Office of Human Resources to see what that means. I've met with the Secretary, DEQ, Bree Wilson, to talk about what that meant. I've met with some other executive directors of the General Assembly who set up executive directors and staffing for commissions like this. We're not the only one. We're not the first one. In fact, there's about 8 or 10 others that already have it. So there are some templates to go by and think about. But we will be working on that as we move forward. The way it's set up, I get to be the hiring manager. So whatever that means, I know what that means in most of the world, including the state government. So more stuff for me to do with my time. But we will be moving that ball forward as put in the statute. So those are 4 things I wanted to bring to you before we did our roundtable. And I'll probably say something else at the end about orientation or the onboarding, but let's questions.
Yeah, so question on the staff that it's interesting that you're the hiring manager, because you're not a state employee, correct? You're still a public servant volunteer.
Right, that's the function, but that's
So
legal.
who's going to oversee this staff?
We get our normal support from DEQ and DEQ HR, and the State Office of Human Resources supports all the agencies. So this will all be set up as it's been set up with other commissions before and executed that way. So not without precedent.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to understand.
And the bill doesn't name me as the hiring manager, but in effect, when you start going inside the HR process, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or state or local government, that's kind of what you are. You're responsible for
so the
getting
question
job
is,
description in and making sure it gets advertised by the HR people, but the HR people are still governing the processes.
and just to get an understanding of, what kinds of positions these are going to be. Are these positions that support all of us, or they support mainly the chair and vice chair? Just trying to get a better understanding of how helpful this will be and how it will be a resource for the whole commission.
We talked about it one time before, and I think both Commissioner Reardon and I met with now the Secretary twice separately. We see these as, and it's intended for the General Assembly, they're additive. Mm-hmm. They're not deductive. They're not giving us money and taking it away from DEQ. DEQ still has their budget, but this is really to support what the commission needs. And again, by law, the thing says we can pick up to full-time equivalent, so they don't have to be full-time staff, and it can be in these functions. So it's really as we start to see what we need. Okay. Now, as a precedent, and that's what we've said before, is we would like to get kind of the executive or the lead person on board. And if for no other reason, that person helps make decisions and help us, advise us on other people we need to hire, how many people we would maybe need to support our mission. When we go to onboarding, I sent some of that out as part of the pre-onboarding stuff, but we'll talk about all the responsibilities and duties of the commission. You got a lot.
Yeah.
And some of them we're just not
Yeah.
able to cover as volunteers, and staff, current staff can't cover them all.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be working through and figuring that out.
Okay.
Mr. Smith.
On the budget issue, yes, it's a separate budget item, but we also heard from the secretary and we've heard from division directors, the mini budget bill this year is cutting $2.2 million from the department's budget. There'll be another $600,000 reduction next year. And then we've got the cuts to the Division of Air Quality budget due to the changes in the inspection program, and that's another $2 million. I have real concerns about spending $700,000 in state funds to pay for what are essentially duplicative positions in light of the department's total budget situation. They're looking at cutting permitting staff, compliance staff, engineers. If it were me, I would politely decline the offer from the General Assembly because I do not see how this is either necessary or appropriate for this commission, and particularly in light of the budget situation that the department is facing. If the state of North Carolina cannot pay to keep permitting and compliance staff in these programs, they sure don't need to be paying for a third lawyer to advise this commission, which is one of the positions authorized in that bill.
But it doesn't have to be filled. It's a man.
Well, and I would suggest that we not fill most, if any, of those positions.
I understand what you're saying. First of all, I'm not going to question, just like we all work for companies or universities or whoever, if the governing body that controls the budget sends us budget, I'm not going to go look at that person and say, I don't need to hear this back, or let me go share it with somebody else. They are well aware of what DEQ needs and the shortfalls. And I've actually talked to the secretary about some of the shortfalls, and we've heard them. And I've been told that the General Assembly will be dealing with that in the next year's budget. But I've also been told this is not the substitute for that. So we have a statute, we have a law that says this is what's there. And we'll start moving in that direction as we've been instructed, just like we would with anything with the General Assembly. But we will map out in a methodical way what's needed and when it's needed, and do our best to fulfill the charge of what the statute says. So, I mean, it's like anything else. That's not our lane. That's not our lane to decide where the money goes and who pulls it back. It's not.
If I can just respond briefly to that. The bill authorizes the positions. It does not require the positions. There's been no discussion among the commission as a whole of the need for those positions and how they would be used. So it is what it is.
It is.
But it is authorized, not required. I think it's a legitimate issue for the commission as a group to discuss both the need and how to move forward with filling those positions.
And it's more than authorized. When that happens from the General Assembly statute, gets put into the account. On November 7th, last Friday, it might have happened this money, but money was physically transferred in and authorized into the account. It's not just we go and ask them for a position. It's there. Commissioner.
Yes, I just like to say I'm also concerned about kind of lack of involvement of the rest of us in, what kinds of qualifications we're looking for, what the duties will be, involvement in the hiring process. I think it would be really important for the entire commission to be able to have a discussion of what should that job description look like? What kinds of people are going to be recruited? What are the most important tasks for them to help us with? We might all have different opinions on that. So I'm bothered by not having been involved in that. And it sounds like we're not going to be involved at all in reviewing candidates. And I just think if this person is intended to serve the commission, then the staff should serve all of us, and we should all have a say.
And either way you want to put it, we will follow what the statutes say. And the statutes say what they say, which is the chair makes the hire. And we can work under that, but that's what it says. Y'all can read it. I sent it to everybody. And that's what we'll go by, just like any other obligation or rule that's passed in the statute. It was passed by both chambers and signed by the governor. So we'll execute it.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's necessarily arguing with that. And that the chair can make the hire, but it's how you make that decision.
Right.
And I think the request that you're hearing is that we be involved in that how part.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, that's the last I want to say about that. And I'm sure somebody may have it up in the roundtable. Me and Ellie have given you plenty of bait to talk about in your roundtable, or maybe nothing. Let's start, go around the horn. Commissioner Yarborough, I think lunch is here, so anything you want to add? Anything you want to add? No pressure. You usually have a good, what's that thing you said about the High Rock Lake? What? The Yadkin River?
Oh, yeah, too.
Anyway, go ahead.
Too thick
Any
to drink, too
any
thin
comments
to
for the good of
plow.
the group?
That's right. Well, that's about all I'll say then. That was good.
No, say more. Say
No,
more.
I don't really have, I enjoyed the meeting today. We have a lot. I'm really concerned about the 3 lake for us to have to do what we're doing with as little time as we have. So I don't know if there's any alternative to that. It seems like an awful big list to try to pull all those together in the amount of time that we're given.
I will say, he said too thin to pump, too thick to pump and too thin to plow, so.
Yeah, I like that.
Too thick to
Drink.
Too drink, is that what it was?
That was in the Civil War book. Too.
Okay.
So that's been around long.
That was rough back
It's
then.
still.
Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, I'll say I'm looking forward to orientation next month. I'm looking forward to your continued leadership, Sheriff Solomon. And also happy holidays to everyone. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. And I encourage everybody to just be mindful of other opinions as we discuss, 3 huge modeling efforts and PFAS, dioxin, 1,4-dioxane, all that moving forward. So yeah, looking forward to continued work with this commission.
Mr. Tweedy.
I'm gonna put my optimistic hat on here for you guys, folks. I expect we'll have a lot of robust discussion in January now on PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. But I have been supportive of getting the rule as it stands now to the commission so we can talk about it, ultimately get it out to public comment. I've also been critical of the rule. I think we could do better. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion about that in commission. But I really enjoyed Ms. Greaves' presentation today. I love the data and some of the things that it showed. I think it shows there is a benefit to monitoring and identifying where these problems are coming from. That data, again, it's a small data set and we talked about some of the issues, but what it shows is there are some outliers. There are some actors that are contributing a lot more than others. And I think when we can identify those, she also mentioned that some of the folks that had high samples and now realize it are taking proactive steps to address that. So that's encouraging to hear. So it gives me confidence that I don't know that we'll ever get PFAS or dioxin out of the system. I don't know if it's possible, but I do think there's the ability to get it down to levels where it's going to be much better for human health. And it doesn't seem that unachievable. So I hope we'll work towards that as efficiently and quickly as we can. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Spit.
Water Allocation Committee yesterday had a short agenda, mostly information items. One that I will commend to commission members who aren't on the committee. Take a look at the Triangle Water Supply Partnership presentation in that committee. So it describes sort of consortium of 13 or 14 water systems in the area who are joining together to do a water supply plan and have already done a lot of work on interconnection between water systems to address emergencies and drought situations. So that was a really good presentation, and it's something you might be interested in taking a look at. Otherwise, our one action item was one of the seemingly endless list of approving schedules for rural readoption. So that was exciting. Otherwise, yes, like Commissioner Tweedy, I don't know if I'm quite as optimistic as he is. Looking forward to a discussion in January of both the 1,4-dioxane and the proposed PFAS rules. As I've said before, I've said this to the chair, I think the idea, the concept of monitoring and minimization is a good one, but these are the two things I would say to think about between now and January are the gaps in those rules that currently are going to be a real challenge for implementation and seeing results. I think we need to address some of those gaps. The other thing I think to keep in mind is 1,4-dioxane and PFAS are very different things. And I don't think the rules approach at this point is identical for the two. And I'm not sure that is actually workable, that that's the best approach for those two very different types of pollutants, very different situations in terms of source identification. So those are the things I'll be thinking about between now and then. We look forward to that discussion.
Mr. Ormzilla.
Yeah, so also I'm looking forward to orientation and, you know, I understand the desire to try to get things to move along, but I am happy that we'll have the conversation in January that we have, especially for a number of us that are new. It gives us an opportunity to be better informed and better contributors to the conversation so that we make the right decision.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes, I want to first of all just thank the DEQ staff for all of the incredibly hard work that you do to protect the environment. And just, you know, one example today, it was so great to hear that there were no exceedances of the 8-hour ozone standard. This past year, I grew up in a city with a lot of air pollution. You know, the air looked orange when you landed, and there were many days when kids were told to stay inside because the air was bad. So I especially appreciate that. I also appreciate the extra analysis you did to assess how changes to or a potential repeal of greenhouse gas emission standards might affect our air quality. So I just wanted to say thanks for that. I also wanted to thank the DEQ staff who did that really nice studies sampling wastewater influent and effluent and biosolids. It really does show us that wastewater treatment plants, municipal and industrial, are really important sources of PFAS in our surface waters. And I really hope we can get to the point where we're doing something to prevent that. And like Commissioner Smith, I'm concerned about whether the proposed rules are going to really get us there.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. King. You have a lot you can talk about. But
No, sir. I'll be very brief. I
had a big meeting.
He did.
it's 3 hours, I think, something like that. Maybe not something. First of all, I'm the least qualified commissioner at this horseshoe. I only have been here since 2010. But what I consider the best of this journey, I've watched all these chairs being filled by different individuals that I still have relationships with, that they're not here anymore. And some of them have passed away. But through the time I've sat on the commission, I've been in water because I've always loved the water. Water allocation, waste management, groundwater, now surface water. So I'm the least qualified because we have brilliant people that have their own science, lawyers, engineers. But during this tenure that I've sat here, it's been cold ash and it's been nutrient rules and it's been agriculture issues. And I thank the General Assembly for having two individuals that sit up here that represent agriculture, IBTs. But now, going through the process with the 1,4 and dioxin and PFAS and representing the lakes that we spoke about yesterday, or was information yesterday, I'm just thankful that we have the right chairman. at the wheel. As most of you know, I move boats for a living and was a hobby, really, not for a living, thank goodness. But you have to have that captain at the wheel, and we have that today. I can tell you that, all of you here, that Chairman Solomon, he shows up everywhere. You start networking, you start talking with people, and that the information coming up through this horseshoe, through the department, he's well thought of. And that's why I made a motion to and support his efforts to continue to lead this EMC. And I'm just glad that I can just congratulate you for taking on this for 2 more years and helping us not run aground, but get to the end. And I like what you said a while ago. Get to the end the right way. Let's get it right. Thank you.
Vice Chair Riddle, we're going to you, and then I'll go around.
I'll be really brief, but I do want to thank the commission for your vote and support to be vice chair. I will guarantee you that I'll do my very best to exceed your expectations and be fully committed and engaged. And a couple of things that are principally sound to me is I think we're better as a group than we are individually. And I think respecting the opinion of those that we agree with is fine, but also respecting the opinion of those that we may not agree with is a quality. We can use it more broadly in our society today. And respectful this dialogue is a great thing. We are truly better together. I want to thank the department for your presentation, Julie, on the biosolids. They put a lot of work into that. There's a lot we can learn from that. I don't think we have all the conclusions that we need. It's something we're going to be faced with as a community going forward. 31% of all biosolids are land applied. It doesn't mean that the land in which they're applied is not suitable for use. It means that we have to understand this. And the one thing that has to resonate in our mind, for the decades of these applications, no one thought anybody was doing anything wrong and wasn't done with the intention of that. But this volume of biosolids are not going to go in landfills. You can forget that. 31%, they're going to be land applied. Secondly, they're not going to all be incinerated. Where does that go, right? And we'll be dealing with other issues over there, right? But I think we need to be smart. We need to be measured, be resourceful, and learn from all those others that may have preceded us, especially in New England states, New Mexico, and such as that. So, and lastly, I'd say don't let perfection get in the way of being good. These monitoring rules that were being talked about in these committees, they get us started. What are the things we know? What are the things we don't know? But what are the things we don't know that we don't know? That may be the broadest category. And so I hope that we don't just disparage the work that was put into these rules. If there's tweaks that need to be done, so be it. But I'd like to know who those point source dischargers are so that we can better understand how to manage, mitigate, and have improvement plans in them. And there were a lot of good pieces to it. So I'm stopping right there. Thank you.
Commissioner Jespers.
Skipping through here. Okay, great. I really appreciated all the discussions we had yesterday. So all of the points that were raised and the ability to be heard, I really, really appreciate all of that. I do agree that the data on ozone, a little bit of sort of historical context. I actually did my dissertation on ozone. So seeing that the work, the scientific work that many of the scientists like myself is actually leading to a cleaner air is great to see. So that was really, really, that was great. I agree with everyone else that the presentation on biosolids was really, really important. I learned a lot, and this is basically the bottom line is I've been a scientist for the better part of my life, and looking at where science can actually inform regulation has been a steep learning curve. And I really appreciate all of this, and I'm ready to learn more, and I'm looking forward to the orientation. It's really great to see and hear sort of different opinions, and I agree very much with you. I think we need to sort of listen to what people that may not agree with us have to say and incorporate that into potential rules, regulations, recommendations. So it's a great conversation. It's a great discussion. And I really like the sort of respectful way we're all interacting here with each other. So I'm looking forward to orientation. I'm looking forward to learning more and rolling up my sleeves and get going on it.
Thank you. Hardison.
I have to also repeat that I am looking forward to the orientation.
No pressure, right? No pressure.
And certainly do appreciate all the presentations yesterday and today. Again, just coming from the regulated community and understanding how hard all the departments within DEQ work, and then seeing it from this perspective, just amplifies the respect that I have had for them for decades in my career. So I do appreciate that. And I echo also what you said about the respectful nature of our conversations. I thought yesterday was very productive and informative. And I'm looking forward to additionally plowing into the regulations for monitoring and minimizing PFAS and these chemicals.
I will, excuse me, I will happily jump on the Julie, you've done a great job bandwagon. And having some experience with biosolids, the one thing that was really interesting to me is unlike other contaminants that concentrate in the biosolids, the majority of the PFAS are going out in the water. And that's pretty important. And Commissioner Reardon's comment, you know, we've been land applying biosolids since forever. And we're not seeing catastrophic levels in sites where the land application has occurred. So this is, you know, for our food supply and good waste management practices, this is all very encouraging, recognizing it's a quick and dirty kind of analysis, but it's very, very helpful. And I thank you for that. So the Air Quality Committee had a relatively light agenda, continued updates on the air curtain incinerator. There was a good summary of anticipated and potential EPA actions besides the greenhouse gas, and how those federal actions may or may not impact North Carolina. A lot of ambiguity in the table because they don't know. Air quality at this stage cannot yet determine because they're not sure what the feds are going to do. But as far as air quality goes, there's a lot of potential for US EPA actions to compel even more changes with air quality, that division. And lastly, Commissioner Yarborough was doing a happy dance. The sustained efforts of the department and the air quality division to work with Tiger Cat and the biochar process, the equipment, the company, the soil and water conservation and the needs in Western North Carolina. There is an exemption available to them for stormwater cleanup, but they, correct me if I'm wrong, they will concurrently pursue the general permit because there are other opportunities for this technology in the state. You know, we're building subdivisions and apartment complexes left and right. A lot of trees are getting cleared and turned into mulch. The supply of mulch in many places, especially out west from the storm, but the supply far outseeds the demand, and the biochar is an environmentally responsible way to deal with a lot of the woody debris that we generate separate from what Helene generated. And so that's a real big accomplishment, and it made Commissioner Yarborough so happy he was running around hugging people. So.
Yeah. So not dangerous anymore.
So that's all. Well,
Commissioner Chmielewski, let's move on.
Well, I could second a lot of things that have already been said. Looking forward to the orientation next month. And just to be transparent about what is kind of going through my head a lot as a new commissioner is there's been a lot of discussion about cost of regulations, cost of testing and cleanup. And what I think about a lot is what are the cost of exposure? So you have a case of infertility or you have a case of renal cancer, you know, those are costs that need to be thought about too. And I would like to have conversations around how can we look at those public health costs, you know, within our statutory rulemaking framework. I know that in 2024, with the PFAS standards were proposed, there were benefits. A dollar number was put down, and I'm not sure why that's changed. So that's a question in my mind, and I would like to learn from other commissioners about that. And just want to thank the department for all the great work and the biosolids presentation today, and just maybe offline, but we'll ask Commissioner Ellison about his comment about that we don't know about catastrophic levels of PFAS anywhere, because it sounds like we're not monitoring the groundwater where a lot of this stuff is applied in dedicated sites. So another little question in my head. But I feel like I'm learning a lot, and thank you all for the discussions.
Yes, sir. Groundwater and Waste Management Committee met yesterday. We dealt with two action items. One that was brought before the commission, a 30-day waiver earlier today, dealing with the readoption of 2L, 2N, 2O, and 2P. The second action item that we dealt with will probably be brought, I guess, in January. It was the third time we've took a swing at dealing with the IMAX for 4 pesticide compounds, maybe third time's a charm. But we did recommend from the committee to the commission to decline rulemaking on those 4 compounds and let the IMAX expire. So commission members will be seeing those coming up soon. Congratulations, Chair Solomon and Vice Chair Reardon. And Joey, you're well respected out in the community, so wish you well wherever you go.
Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. First, I'd like to acknowledge all the work that the staff is doing on these natural disasters. We have one Hurricane Helene, then we get the emergencies at the coast, and waste is piling up all over, turning into wood chips all across the state. And so in addition to what they normally do with permitting and inspections, now each natural disaster is putting another layer of responsibility on them. And I wish we would have more staff authorized under our legislation so that they have some help to be able to deal with these natural disasters as well as do their regular jobs. It's just unbelievable to me, and it affects all the media. So there's that. I also wanted to say that in a different slant, getting the information on the biosolids was important to me. I'm not on the Water Quality Committee, and I know that I can go to those meetings and learn, but I didn't really understand that we had so much or so little, however you want to characterize it, data on the influent and effluent. And I'm glad I got that information before I had to vote on the rules. That made a difference to me to understand it better. So I felt like that was an essential presentation, and I would like to see it in a report. I was also interested in what Commissioner Gibson said about what she's working on and how that information can contribute to our understanding of it. And I was very impressed that we have someone on the commission that has that knowledge. And then the other thing I was thinking about is the 5 staff well, I don't know what they're called, 5 commission positions. You know, we don't know what the job descriptions are or how they're going to fit into us, but I certainly want to have direct communication from our division directors. I don't want to see that go away and have just commission staff making reports. So I hope we have a direct communication with the division people. I highly respect all of them.
This is complimentary. It's not exclusion. In fact, the legislation says that. It's basically that we continue on until the commission sees a way to help. It's not to cut anything out of what we're doing. So.
Okay, well,
Had some
I'm,
initial conversations already, and that's where we want to be at.
well, thanks for clarifying that, because that's very important to me. I think we have great staff. So that's all.
Mr.
Thank
Bailey.
you.
Council, you have any other comments you want to make at this time? Three things for me, and we'll wrap it up. One, thanks for all the commissioners. I guess thanks, but I chair again. I'm humbled by it. Everybody this table, I think Commissioner King said it, is very, very qualified in everything you do. There's no weak links here. There's a lot of good opinions here. And it is, it's an honor, but it's also at times a challenge to make sure we're all coming together. But I really appreciate all the effort and professionalism of everybody here. And I do my best. Like Commissioner King did say, I'll get him again. I've seen a few seats turn over, and I really hope the newer members appreciate the fact that I'm trying to relate to you and help you get oriented, because it is a whole lot of stuff to learn. And the older newer ones can tell you it takes a while, doesn't it? It takes a while. So I say that first, but thank you very much. Thank you very much for the vice chair. Joe and I work very good together. We've been through a lot of stuff, and we connect on some professional levels too. So it's good to have him with me and advise me. And thanks to the AG's office. I'm not here anymore, but Ellie's done a great job in the past year or so, and I appreciate all her support. I will say too, one of the things I told the secretary was I appreciate Director Rogers. He and I seem to have the day-to-day part of keeping the trains on the schedule. So regardless of what the results are, we seem to have a way to make sure the agendas are out and done, and that it's just a necessary mash of things we do. So I've appreciated what he's helped me with that too. Committee assignments, I've got a couple of questions on committee assignments. Again, we have 7 people. We don't want to have a meeting of the whole, so we can only have 7 commissioners on a committee. To the best of our ability, we try to put the skill sets on the committee where we need them. If you're good in air, you should probably be on the air committee. We try to. Sometimes some committees have more expertise and we can get 7 people on the committee. But I try to grant everybody one or both of what they want to do. Some before have wanted to be on 3 or 4, and I can't let you be on 3 or 4 because it violates the meeting of the whole. I also want you to be able to move around a little bit too. And when you see me, we'll see us make the shifts in committees. Some of that is to get you to know other members of DEQ staff, because there's a benefit to that too. If you only know the air staff, sometimes it's good to get to know the water to solid waste staff. So we try to move some people around with that too, to get to know different people, because that makes the department stronger and it makes us stronger. So I'll be working on that. We'll have new committee assignments by the January meeting. And I'll be contacting each of you to make sure I know kind of strong preferences and whatnot. So last thing on the orientation or the onboarding, I'm giving you a little bit of that just because I know you're doing some decision making, but we will go through our duties and powers and all the legislative things we do. We'll go to the Administrative Procedures Act, make sure you understand what goes in an RIA or a fiscal note. I think we'll do some stuff on public meetings and public information requests. Boy, this sounds exciting. Y'all say, I'm looking forward to this. Boy, it sounds like watching paint dry, doesn't it? But we'll try to keep it entertaining, but we'll go through that. We'll probably, if we want to talk more about the Rains Act, because we know more, if we know more, we will with you guys. And then any other topics y'all want. But there's more than we can probably do in a few hours. But the point is, we'll give you some information in advance. And hopefully as a group, it really, again, helps us gel as a team, for everybody to come together and have that time together, going through this in person versus, trying to do it remote, trying to do it in these meetings. All the existing members or older members are welcome to join us as we have in the past. I would like to have, and I kind of requested, I forget how Lois did, but I would like the newer members to be there in person. Ones that have been here around a while, dial in, call in, but don't feel the pressure to come in. Don't take your time or the state's money to come in if you don't want to, but you're welcome to sit through it and do it remotely, because there will be remote offerings as well. So with that said, is there anything else for the better of the group? Okay, hearing none, we're adjourned. Civil remissions will go at what time?